Chapter 1040. So many things have happened. Qian Rinxue murmured. No wonder a woman like her, who has sealed her heart, who is high above the masses, who ignores everyone, who is ruthless and heartless, would fall in love with you. Especially when he heard about the sacrifice of 3 soul beasts to save Bibidon in the Great Star Do Forest, he was even more shocked. So, you know everything about her? Qian Rinxue said after a moment of silence, even her past. I know everything. Wang Feng nodded. Hearing this, Qian Rinxue sighed softly. Grandpa told me that she is a pitiful woman. Wang Feng, don't let her down. Then I'll let you down? No. Qian Rinxue said subconsciously, but his face turned red as soon as he finished speaking. He knew that Wang Feng said that on purpose. Bastard. Qian Rinxue punched Wang Feng. Wang Feng grabbed Qian Rinxue's hand and their eyes met. Suddenly, the atmosphere became a little ambiguous. Wang Feng stared at Qian Rinxue in front of him. Her appearance was indeed unparalleled, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that she was the prettiest in the world. According to the aesthetic standards of his previous life, Qian Rinxue was more like a mixed blood. Her face had the gentleness of the East, but also the coldness of the West. Qian Rinxue's eyelashes fluttered, and she closed her eyes, as if giving a silent signal. Wang Feng slowly kissed her. Just as he was about to kiss her, suddenly, there was a cold shout from outside. Wang Wu, come out, I have a question for you. Wang Feng, Qian Rinxue. In an instant, the atmosphere was ruined. Qian Rinxue first opened her eyes in panic, then seemed to remember something, and her face was full of shame and anger. Her chest heaved. Wang Feng was also a little embarrassed. What on earth were these 2 girls doing? Don't go out. Qian Rinxue snorted. However, Qian Rinxue's choice was completely different from the Bibidon. She flipped over and wrapped her arms around Wang Feng's neck. Pressing Wang Feng under her body, she murmured, Wang Feng, if you want to marry me first, your first must be me. The first person you met was me. Wang Feng. There was no logical connection, right? Wang Feng thought about it. The first thing he met was indeed a Qian Rinxue. Ning Rongrong leaned back. Stop fooling around. Wang Feng said, what if she comes in directly? I'll be staying here for a few more days. It's not like I'm going to be sealed immediately. Qian Rinxue stayed in Wang Feng's arms for a while, feeling a little dissatisfied. His whole body was hot and his face was red. Only then did he reluctantly listen to Wang Feng and let go of his hands. The future was long. That's true. Anyway, Wang Feng would stay for a few more days. In the next few days, Wang Feng went back and forth between the Pope's palace and the Elder's palace. He taught them the 2 secret techniques, Qian Rinxue and Bibidon. He told the 2 of them what he had learned from his cultivation over the past few days, as well as his explanations. With their strength and talent, under Wang Feng's guidance, they were able to comprehend it very quickly. Of course, there was naturally some intimate contact. Wang Feng also discussed the future of the continent with Bibidon and the higher-ups of the Martial Spirit Alliance. At the end of this year, at the beginning of the next year, they planned to announce to the entire continent that the Martial Spirit Alliance would be changed to the Martial Spirit Federation. It would be formed by the Star Luo Empire, the Heaven Do Empire, and the Martial Spirit Palace. The Martial Spirit Federation would set new laws and regulations and combine military forces to unify the world of soul masters on the continent. The 2 empires and 1 palace would have autonomy. The 2 empires and 1 palace would be the main body. There would be no distinction between you and me, and they would be the Martial Spirit Federation. Due to the ancient political systems of the 2 empires, the empires were not abolished for the time being. They could only change slowly according to time. At the same time, they also needed to establish the highest authority of the Federation, the Central Martial Spirit Palace. There would be 12 people representing the 2 empires and the highest authority of the Martial Spirit Palace. They would be in charge of managing and handling the general affairs of the Martial Spirit Federation. The three forces would each have 4 people. Other than that, there were also some rules and regulations. This process would take a long time to discuss. Wang Feng only listened to the general idea and lost interest. Moreover, it would take some planning to implement it. However, the general rules were proposed by Wang Feng. The main thing was that the people of the current Douluo world didn't know about the more advanced system. Wang Feng could only mention it slightly. Because the empires were indeed more backward, they needed to be unified and not simply unified the continent. Naturally, it was impossible to continue with the empires. In that case, the empires would definitely split up again in a few hundred years at most. Then, they would be divided into other forces again. There would be endless war, and it would be impossible to quickly develop and maintain after unification. Wang Feng could only bring out the systems he knew from his previous life and temporarily follow the general framework. Then, in this framework, it would slowly change. Fortunately, this was a continent dominated by soul masters. In the end, it was strength that spoke. This kind of system was still a bit too much for the current Douluo continent. If it was in other ancient worlds, it would be impossible to implement. The 2 empires and the Martial Spirit Palace would find it difficult to adapt for the time being. But as long as it was maintained, once it changed, the benefits would naturally go without saying. At that time, even if it decayed, it would last much longer than the pure empires. And under this system, resources would be shared, and the Soul Master world would be unified. Talents would come out in large numbers. Who knows if it would be better in the future? Maybe, at some point in time, some amazing people would be born on the continent, leading the direction of the Martial Spirit Federation. 100 years, 1,000 years, these people would definitely appear. Bibidon also promised him that he would change all of this before flying to the God realm with Qianrenshu. It wouldn't even take long, because she was a God-rank powerhouse. With Bibidon's methods, the ancient systems of the 2 empires and the various forces would probably be disintegrated in a few years. It would become a true federal system. A few days before the seal. Pope's Palace, Bibidon's bedroom. Wang Feng didn't expect that he would still be pushed down. Well, pushed down by Bibidon. On the eve of the farewell, Bibidon forcefully pushed him down. To be honest, these days, Qianrenshu and Bibidon were testing each other. Every time they reached a critical moment, they would use various methods to interrupt each other. But this time, Bibidon didn't care about Qianrenshu's interruptions. Instead, he pushed Wang Feng down. Wang Feng also didn't expect that his first time would really be pushed down by Bibidon. But in the second half, it was obvious that Wang Feng was the dominant one. There was no need to say more about this wonderful scene. Skip, fill in the blanks yourself. When the love was strong, it would naturally be deep. But in reality, Bibidon was far more inexperienced than Wang Feng had imagined, but her charm and grace were something that no one could compare to. Bibidon put away the blooming plum blossom. Her brows were blooming with a bit of amorous feelings. Her tone was still cold, but there was a hint of charm. Wang Wu, why are you so familiar with it? It's your first time too. It seemed that she wanted to ask this question just now. Chapter 1041. Talent, Wang Feng said. Bibidon glared at Wang Feng, his cheeks blushing a soul-stirring red. After keeping the plum blossom, Bibidon lay down and leaned into Wang Feng's embrace. She quietly enjoyed this warmth. About the front secret word and the swordsman's secret word, you haven't told those little beauties of yours, right? Bibidon suddenly asked. Not yet. Wang Feng nodded. When they become gods, you want me to tell them? Bibidon looked at him with a faint smile. Why, are you worried that something will happen to those little beauties of yours? Do you want me to watch them in secret? Wang Feng coughed a few times. Don't be so direct. Don't worry, Bibidon said indifferently. I won't let anything happen to those little beauties of yours. Seal them in peace in a few days. Wang Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Suddenly, Bibidan's delicate body trembled. Her voice trembled a little. Why are you still not done? I already said, talent. Wang Feng whispered into Bibidan's ear. Dong go put on your pope attire. Bibidan was stunned. After a few seconds, she reacted. Her eyes were so embarrassed and angry that she wanted to kick this bastard off the bed. Filthy. However, when she heard the words Dong Bibidan felt sweet and numb in her heart. Unknowingly, Bibidan put on the pope attire that once symbolized the martial spirit hall's supremacy. Several days later, in the great Star Do forest, Wang Feng came here with a refreshed expression. At the same time, the 5 great divine kings were also here. This was the place where he would be sealed. The reason why he chose this place was because of the 5 great divine kings' prediction. The seal could not completely suppress the life energy that was constantly surging out of Wang Feng's body. After a long time, every once in a while, some of it would leak out. Although the leaked life energy was very little and very faint, it would bring many changes to the continent under the influence of the world. According to the words of the 5 great divine kings, although the life energy that overflowed from Wang Feng's body was very faint, it was like the dregs of dregs. But it was very likely to change the Douluo world. Because even if this energy was the residue of Wang Feng's life source, it was still a kind of high-level energy in this world. Furthermore, the Great Star Do Forest was located at the center of the continent. With the center as the source, the effects were naturally the best. Of course, these were all just speculations. This was because it was the first time they had encountered a situation like Wang Feng's. As for the specifics, they would have to wait and see after the seal. In fact, the god of destruction and the god of Azura had refused to stay in the Great Star Do Forest. Although this was the center of the continent, it was also the central territory of countless soul beasts. If they were sealed here, the soul beasts in the Great Star Do Forest would be the first to benefit after countless years. These soul beasts would become stronger once they absorbed the residual energy that leaked out from Wang Feng's seal. To the God realm, this was naturally something they did not wish to see. However, Wang Feng still managed to convince them. You're afraid of soul beasts because you're afraid of another situation like the Dragon God. Wang Feng looked at the 5 God Kings and said, if I can become the Origin Tribulation God King, even if a few more situations like the Dragon God appear, I won't be afraid. He shouldn't be afraid, right? Furthermore, you're all God Kings. Why should you be afraid of soul beasts? Let me put it this way. Once I awaken, I will definitely change this abnormal cultivation system of soul beasts and soul masters. The 5 God Kings looked at him in astonishment. As the saying goes, it's better to let things go. Wang Feng looked at them. It's not impossible for soul beasts and soul masters to coexist. According to what you said, if the God realm is in danger, soul beasts are also living beings. They have their characteristics and are not inferior to us humans. You're restricting their ascension to godhood. In essence, you're depriving them of a great help. I know what you're worried about. Wang Feng looked at the god of destruction who was about to speak. You're worried that a powerful existence like the Dragon God who doesn't accept the restrictions of the God Realm Committee will appear again? Wang Feng and the 5 God Kings had learned about that history. Back then, the Dragon God and many other soul beast gods were unwilling to accept the restrictions of the God Realm Committee and wanted to replace them. Therefore, they started a war. In fact, this was only the 5 God Kings' side of the story. History was always written by the victors. If it was said by the ancient soul beast gods who were still alive, it would probably be a different story. For example, the soul beasts might say that the great dragon god created the god realm and then tolerated these humans, allowing them to become god. In the end, these human gods didn't know how to repay kindness and instead wanted to replace the dragon god, so they started a war with the dragon god and so on. Let's not dwell on this history for now. In fact, the most fundamental reason is that you can't find a way to coexist between humans and soul beasts. It's also because you're not strong enough. Wang Feng shook his head. Soul beasts and humans can coexist peacefully, and there is even a possibility of them growing together. You can't do it, but I can, Wang Feng said indifferently. The 5 God Kings looked at Wang Feng. The God King of Destruction couldn't help but sneer. You haven't become the Origin Tribulation God King yet. Do you know how difficult it is to change the cultivation method of a world? We've secretly changed the Douluo world. That's why there's the current system of soul beasts and humans. But that's the essence of this world's evolution after countless years. That's a long time. Is it something you can change just because you want to? Just the grievances and prejudices between soul beasts and humans are passed down from generation to generation. It's not easy to change. I, the God King of Destruction, will say it here. Without us, you can change the cultivation system of the Douluo world by yourself. You don't need to become the Origin Tribulation God King. When I see you in the future, I'll kowtow 3 times and 9 times. Also, soul beasts can't become gods. This is the iron law of the God Realm Committee. If you want to change this, wait until you become the Origin Tribulation God King. This seal will last for who knows how many years, and it's not necessarily safe. Who knows if the seal will explode midway and you'll die. You still have the mood to consider this? The God King of Destruction finished word by word. The 5 of us used the origin laws to seal you. It'll take at least many years for you to recover in the God realm. We don't have the ability to strengthen the seal for you. The Azura God said, after sealing you, I'll retire and pass on the position of God King to the next person. As for the soul beasts, if you can really do it, you'll have the ability. The evil god smiled. It was him and the God King of Destruction who suppressed the dragon god back then. Me too. The evil god said with a smile, after sealing you, Kindness and I plan to go to other unknown worlds or continents to play and find a successor. The life goddess smiled. It seems that the person who made the great wish in the Douluo world and caused the God realm to move should be you. Although Little Z's words were a little sharp, soul beasts are just a double-edged sword. For us, holding them in our hands can protect us from threats, but we can also hurt ourselves. But you don't need us to sell you. If you can really create a cultivation method for soul beasts and humans to change the rules of the world, then you really do have the ability. Wang Feng was silent. They came to the center of the great star Do forest. Core area. Do it. Wang Feng took a deep breath and said slowly. At this moment, the life energy in his body began to riot again. Chapter 1042. The 5 God Kings looked at each other and stood in 5 different directions around Wang Feng. They seemed to be thousands of meters apart as they formed a 5-pointed star in midair. In the next moment, 5 different types of power of laws surged out from the 5 of them. The power of laws that surpassed the Douluo world should have caused the Douluo world to collapse once it was used. However, the strange thing was that when the 5 of them used their power of laws at the same time, they miraculously restrained each other and didn't cause the world to collapse. 5 pillars of light shot up into the sky from the 5 of them. In that instant, all the powerful people in the world were watching this scene. It was as if they knew something. Whether it was Tang San, who was touring the continent with Xiao Wu, the rest of the Shrek's 7 monsters, or Ning Rongrong and the other 2 girls in the extreme north. The Bibidon of Martial Spirit City, the Qianrenshu. They knew. This was the seal. 5 different types of power of laws turned into 5 different types of power and fell from the sky. It was as if a huge mountain was pressing down on him. Every time a pillar of light landed on Wang Feng's body, one of the life energy in his body was sealed. After the 5 pillars of light landed, Wang Feng only felt that all the strength in his body was completely sealed. Especially the life origin in his heart, there was almost no life energy flowing out. Wang Feng used his spiritual power to look inside, but he was able to enter this life origin and explore the endless power of laws. At the same time, after every pillar of light landed on Wang Feng's body, it turned into a huge mountain that contained the power of laws of a god king. Rumble! The entire Great Star Do forest seemed to be experiencing an earthquake. Wang Feng was currently inside, so he could clearly sense what was happening outside. He was a little speechless. Why does this look so much like the Five-Finger Mountain? It does look a little like it. 5 mountains of different colors that were thousands of meters tall. It became the only mountain in the Great Star Do forest. The purple mountain represented the God King of Destruction, the red mountain represented the Azura God King's power of laws, and the green mountain represented the goddess of life. Black represented the god of evil, and white represented the god of kindness. The seal on Wang Feng's body came from the power of laws contained within the 5 sacred mountains. Following the passage of time, the power of laws that the 5 divine kings had unleashed would dissipate. Of course, it would take a very long time. As long as Little 3 didn't exist, Wang Feng wouldn't be able to leave this place. He could only stay here and comprehend the laws of life. According to the divine king and the others, the laws required a long period of meticulous comprehension. Their power of laws could not be freely circulated, or else it would cause a devastating blow to the world. It could only be sealed in a fixed place. Furthermore, Wang Feng's life force was simply too vast. Thus, they could only use this method to seal him for a long time. If it was only sealed on his body, it would be rapidly attacked by the power of the origin of life. Therefore, he had constructed these 5 divine mountains and hidden the power of laws within them, in order to seal the life origin in Wang Feng's body for a long time. The 5 great godly kings were in midair, their faces pale. Clearly, they had used powerful source laws, which had consumed quite a bit of their energy. This seal had to be performed by 5 people. Otherwise, if one person was missing, the laws would not be able to reach a balance and the world would be destroyed. Kid, you're on your own now. Don't disappoint us. The voice of the godly king of destruction came from afar. The 5 godly kings had already torn open the void and returned to the divine world to recuperate. Wang Feng took a deep breath and sat quietly in this space built by the 5 divine mountains. This was a hollow area. In the future, he would spend an unknown number of years in this 5 divine mountain. Wang Feng didn't immediately comprehend the life origin in his body, because the power of laws of the 5 godly kings was still suppressing the violent energy of the life origin. It wouldn't be too late to slowly comprehend it after it calmed down. As for the level of his soul power, Wang Feng didn't care. Although these 5 divine mountains isolated all senses from the outside world, Wang Feng could still absorb the energy of heaven and earth. After reaching level 100, there was no problem. It was just that his power was sealed and he couldn't use it. But it didn't stop him from automatically cultivating. Although there were still 8 levels, the rest of the time was calculated in terms of 100 years. No matter how strong Wang Feng's soul power compression was, it wouldn't be a problem for him to cultivate to level 100 after 100 years. The first thing Wang Feng comprehended was the first part of the one spirit into 3 pure ones, given by the system. This thing wasn't simple. In terms of origin, in the myths and legends of the primordial era, this was an illusion and also the supreme technique of that saint. In many fantasies, this was also an extremely powerful peerless divine ability. Compared to simply comprehending the power of laws, Wang Feng felt that this kind of technique was still easier to comprehend. The power of laws was too mysterious. Generally, comprehending this kind of thing required one to reach an extremely high realm in order to have the comprehension and strength to comprehend it. Therefore, Wang Feng planned to use some time directly. After his soul power broke through to level 100, he would consider trying to comprehend the laws of the life origin. Right now, Wang Feng was more focused on comprehending this kind of technique. The first part meant that there might be a middle part and a lower part. Wang Feng roughly went through his mind and had a rough idea of what to do. He pondered for a few days. This technique was divided into several realms. In essence, one could cultivate an avatar, and the avatar would have the same strength and potential as the main body. But it required a powerful life force and soul power to cultivate an avatar. The avatar was the same as the main body. Wang Feng could switch between the avatar and the main body at will. Carry out control cultivation, practice, and so on. It was very strong. Very strong. According to Wang Feng's estimation, the content of the first part was to cultivate an avatar. At most, there could only be two. The content of the middle part was that the three would become one. As long as any one of them didn't die, Wang Feng wouldn't die. He could continue to cultivate his avatar. This was a true peerless divine ability. Even in those top-notch martial arts worlds, it was a supreme technique. And the content of the lower part was to combine the three and unleash supreme power. It was even more abnormal. After reading the first part, Wang Feng knew. This God Ascension chapter was not the so-called Douluo God Ascension. Just as the system said, God, the peak of the universe, the ancestor of all things. This was the God Ascension chapter at the peak of the universe. If nothing went wrong, the system said that this Three Pure Ones technique could allow the martial soul to evolve into a physical body. That was the Chaos Green Lotus and Penguac. According to Wang Feng's estimation, it was to cultivate the main body and the two avatars to the highest realm. Then, the three of them would become one. The three of them would evolve the Chaos Green Lotus and Penguacs, reaching the highest realm. Wang Feng misunderstood the so-called God Ascension chapter. Then next, I need to refine the first avatar before breaking the seal. Then add 10 soul rings to the Angel of Light and Dark Martial Soul and raise it to rank 100. Then, refine the second avatar and add 10 soul rings to the Penguacs and raise it to rank 100. If the main body and avatar both cultivate to the highest realm of the God King and then merge, I can blow up the divine world with one breath? Thinking of this, Wang Feng exhaled slightly. His eyes lit up. The future seemed to be clear. Just like this, under the five-colored sacred mountain, Wang Feng began his second chapter of enlightenment and cultivation. P.S. There are a few more chapters of transition tomorrow. Then, there will be a new chapter. Chapter 1043. When the pentacolored divine mountain appeared in the great Star Do forest, such a colossal structure would naturally stir up a commotion in the surroundings. Now that the continent had been unified, the great Star Do forest had changed, and this place was closely related to the continent. Naturally, the Martial Soul Alliance named this mountain the Pentacolored Mountain. As for why this mountain appeared in the great Star Do forest, there were many different theories, and no one could explain it clearly. Furthermore, the Pentacolored Mountain was located in the core region of the Great Star Do Forest, and most soul masters couldn't enter. Over time, people lost interest in this mountain. It was just that many soul masters who accidentally entered the core region and saw the Pentacolored Mountain often sighed with emotion. The most interesting thing was that this mountain was located in the middle of the Great Star Do Forest. Logically speaking, other than those soul masters who accidentally entered, there shouldn't be many soul masters who dared to enter this place. However, according to those soul masters who accidentally entered this place, there were rare traces of human habitation in the Pentacolored Mountain. This was especially so 50 years after the Pentacolored Mountain appeared. The Martial Soul Alliance had entered a steady and rapid state of development. There were many talents in the world of soul masters, and many powerful soul masters formed teams led by titled Douluo to explore the Pentacolored Mountain. Although it was very dangerous, they were often affected by a mysterious force, and were able to return to the continent alive from the core region. What was even more surprising was that there seemed to be humans living near the Pentacolored Mountain. According to the memories of these titled Douluo, they saw several human houses near the Pentacolored Mountain. Occasionally, they would even see a few celestial figures. However, every time these powerful soul masters wanted to explore deeper, powerful soul beasts would appear to obstruct them, and they would be sent out of the pentacolored mountain by a mysterious force. Over time, the pentacolored mountain became the most incredible place on the Douluo continent. Some people said that this was the remains of the gods, while others said that this was the residence of powerful soul beasts that sealed this place. There were even some who said that this was the gathering place of the goddesses. There were even some who said that this was the continent's holy land, and that as long as they could unravel the pentacolored mountain's mysteries, they would obtain all sorts of powerful abilities. Just like that, 100 years later. Great Star Doe Forest, Pentacolored Mountain. 100 years passed very quickly for the current Martial Spirit Federation. 100 years later, the Rainbow Mountain was covered in lush branches and blue-silver grass. Through the gaps between the various plants, one could vaguely see the 5 different colored rocks. However, it was not affected by the decay of time. Creak, creak, creak. Suddenly, the cries of several soul beasts could be heard from the surrounding forest. This was the core region, and there were many 10,000-year soul beasts. There were also quite a few 100,000-year soul beasts. To be able to rouse the cries of these soul beasts, this person was definitely not simple. In the forest, a handsome man slowly walked out of the forest. He had a head full of short bluish-silver hair, a bright and piercing gaze, and his entire body emanated an aura that was vast and gentle like an ocean. Next to the man was a woman who was half a head shorter than him. She had a beautiful face and a pair of smart and crafty eyes. When are they coming? They were none other than Xiao Wu and Tang San. The two of them had roamed the continent for 100 years and had witnessed the changes that had taken place in the Martial Spirit Federation over the past 100 years. They were indeed changing for the better. Now, 100 years later, they were about to leave the mortal world. According to the agreement, the Shrek's 7 monsters would reunite at the Rainbow Mountain. Because this was the place where Brother Feng was sealed. They would bid farewell to Brother Feng and head to the divine world. I don't know, but I feel the aura of a god. Tang San said with a smile. They should have become gods, right? They should have come here a few times over the years. Brother Feng said that after he was sealed, don't come if you have no business. Otherwise, it would look like he died and we came to pay our respects to him. Xiao Wu chuckled a few times. 100 years had passed, but her personality seemed to be still lively and cute. There was not much change. I can feel that there are a few different residual auras here, Xiao Wu muttered. Xiao Wu muttered softly, there's Zhu Qing, Rong Rong and a few more, even the Pope's aura. Oh, it's not the Pope anymore. It should be the highest leader of the Federation, the leader of the 12 Douluo Heavenly Kings of the Central Martial Spirit Palace. They probably come here often. Tang San couldn't help but laugh. Brother Feng is still a playboy. I can't help it. He has been attracting girls since he was young. When he was at Nodding Academy, most of the girls liked him. However, Brother Feng and these girls, Rong Rong and Zhu Qing, let's not talk about them. I know a few of the others. It's not easy. Why? Do you want to? Xiao Wu hugged Tang San's arm and looked at Tang San warily. Of course not. Xiao Wu, you are enough for me. Tang San shook his head and smiled. I don't have Brother Feng's ability to control their relationship with ease. It's incredible to think about it. Xiao Wu snorted and pouted. It's good that you know. You can only love me in the future. Tang San quickly hugged Xiao Wu and nodded. Ha ha. Little 3, you just arrived and you're already showing off your love? At this time, a somewhat vulgar voice rang out. Captain is all alone in the Rainbow Mountain. You'll affect his comprehension if you do this. Hearing this voice, Tang San and Xiao Wu looked at each other and smiled. They knew who it was. They looked into the distance. Oscar and Shin Lingqi flew over together. They slowly landed on the ground. After not seeing him for 100 years, Oscar's face was a little older. His face was full of whiskers, but he was still very handsome. He looked very strange, but there was a wonderful sense of compatibility. On the other side, Shun Lingqi had a graceful smile on her face. It was like a spring breeze. She had an elegant temperament and exuded the charm of a mature woman. In the past 100 years, the two of them had inherited the divine positions of the culinary god and the nine-colored goddess while touring the continent. It was very satisfying. The culinary god was a rare and special god in the divine realm. He and the nine-colored goddess were husband and wife. The two of them together were not inferior to a first-tier god in terms of usefulness. In addition, they inherited the divine positions perfectly and had outstanding potential. They had a promising future. Brother Feng can't feel it when he's inside. Xiao Wu looked at Oscar and smiled. Uncle Big Sausage, I heard that you opened a Zhenxia restaurant in the continent. Your business spread across the entire continent. It's very famous. Brother and I have tried it. Xiao Wu cough. Why are you still calling me Uncle Big Sausage? Oscar coughed a few times. Call me second brother. Okay, Uncle Big Sausage. Oscar. They looked at each other and felt as if they had returned to the past. They couldn't help but laugh. My Zhenxia restaurant is nothing. Little Three's Tang sect should be the #1 sect in the Federation now. Oscar winked and said, I heard that many young and talented girls join every year. Little Three, when you returned to the Tang sect, did you Tang San's expression changed. He said seriously, Of course not. I'm not a fatty. Damn. Third brother, when did you learn to make up stories? Am I Ma Hongjun, that kind of person? I'm a god now. Why would I be interested in girls in the mortal world? At this moment, an angry laugh sounded. The three of them looked over. It was Ma Hongjun and Bai Qinxiang flying over from afar. Chapter 1044. F***ck, you've changed so much. Oscar looked at Ma Hongjun and said, You're only slightly less good-looking than me now. What kind of divine position did you get? Ma Hongjun had long red hair, a tall and sturdy figure, and a handsome face. He was tall and strong, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Only his eyes still gave off a wretched aura, especially when he looked at the 5-colored mountains of different height. He always had a strange smile on his face. Bai Qinxiang pinched Ma Hongjun and snorted. Brother San is right. Think about it. When you received the Fire God's inheritance at the Flame God Mountain, did you steal a few glances at the girl from the Flame Clan? Were you thinking about flirting with other girls? Also, you said you're not interested in the girls in the mortal world. Could it be that you're interested in the divine worlds? Ma Hongjun's expression changed. He smiled bitterly. Xiang, you can't blame me. My eyes looked at them automatically. I rejected them in my heart. I'm loyal to you. Even if I'm in the divine world, I won't change my mind. Hearing this, Xiao Wu and the others burst into laughter. Bai Qinxiang also glared at him angrily. Fatty, you inherited the Fire God's inheritance? Tang San asked curiously. The Fire God is a true first-grade god. He's one of the 7 elemental gods. It's great that you can inherit his divine position. Yes. Ma Hongjun sighed. Fortunately, Brother Feng urged me to cultivate when I was in Shrek. Especially when I was in the Sea God Mountain, there was that sparrow-crowned phoenix tail sunflower. It changed my and Xiangxiang's physique a lot. Bai Qinxiang's face turned red when she heard this. Even her neck turned red. You're still talking. Bai Qinxiang shouted shyly. Shut up. The sparrow-crowned phoenix tail sunflower was modified by Wang Feng using the golden lotus. It was very unique. Once a man and a woman practiced dual cultivation, the yin and yang would merge and change their bodies. After the two of them got together, not only did Ma Hongjun's talent become stronger, but Bai Qinxiang's talent also became stronger. Their martial souls were very compatible. Ma Hongjun naturally passed the Fire God's test. The two of them could ascend to the God realm together. Ma Hongjun hurriedly shut his mouth. He admired the captain in his heart. Captain was too awesome. He felt that he wouldn't be able to handle Xiang alone. Just by serving him, he had already used up all his mental energy. How did the captain manage to tame 3 or 4 girls? Even the one from Martial Spirit City. Ma Hongjun couldn't help but recall the last time he came to the 5-colored mountain with Bai Qinxiang to see the captain a few decades ago. At that time, he didn't dare to imagine that he would see the highest leader of the Martial Spirit Federation, Bibidon. He actually came to the 5-colored mountain too, and Qian Rinxue was with him. Ma Hongjun shuddered when he saw that. At that time, before he had inherited the fire god, he had already felt the terrifying aura of Bibidon. There was a saying that one only dared to observe from afar. If one got a little closer, the aura of the other party would be so oppressive that it would suffocate one. Later, he heard from Tang San that after Bibidon became a god, especially after the captain was sealed, he mutated and became even stronger. Even he might not be able to win against Bibidon. Such a powerful woman? Even Brother Feng could. The most terrifying thing was that there was also the angel goddess Qian Rinxue. In terms of beauty and temperament, no one in the entire continent could compare to her. She actually lost to Brother Feng. Too terrifying, Ma Hongjun thought to himself. Captain can even conquer this kind of person, worship him. One had to know that those who could come to the 5-colored mountain had a close relationship with Wang Feng. Even if he didn't see it clearly that day in Martial Spirit City, he had some guesses in his heart. A few decades ago, when he saw the two of them come to the 5-colored mountain, Ma Hongjun immediately knew the relationship between Wang Feng and them. Cough cough. Then I won't say any more. Ma Hongjun shut up. By the way, why isn't Boss Dai here yet? As soon as he finished speaking, a hearty laugh sounded from afar. Why, damn fatty, do you miss me? It was accompanied by laughter that sounded like silver bells. Everyone looked over. It was Dai Mubai and Shui Yuer who flew down from the sky. Miss my ass. Ma Hongjun suddenly flapped the wings on his back. Several light wheels flickered on his body. As the fiery red wings flashed, he opened his mouth and spat out a blazing pillar of fire. Dai Mubai laughed and said, Damn fatty, did you become arrogant after becoming the fire god? As soon as he finished speaking, Dai Mubai roared. The same light wheels flickered on his body. A huge white tiger rose into the sky and spat out a white light wave at Ma Hongjun. The 2 light beams exploded in the sky, setting off countless clouds of smoke. Damn, Boss Dai, I didn't expect that even after becoming the fire god, I still can't suppress you? As the smoke dissipated, Dai Mubai said in surprise. Mubai, you should have inherited the war god's godhood, right? Tang San at the side pondered and said, although the war god is only a level 2 god, his combat power is not inferior to a level 1 god. Mubai, what's the situation with Shui Yuer? Ma Hongjun came to a realization. It was just a simple exchange of blows, but he could sense that Dai Mubai was extraordinary. Yuer. Dai Mubai and Shui Yuer landed and said with a smile, because Yuer had cultivated with her elder sister for several years and passed several tests of the ice and water gods in the absolute ice domain of the extreme north, she had consumed a lot of heavenly treasures. Her talent and aptitude are not inferior to mine. When we were traveling the continent, we came to an ancient region called the War Desolate Clan. There, I inherited the War God's godhood, while you inherited the Frost God's godhood. You can enter the God world with me. Speaking of which, it took quite a bit of effort. Tang San thought about it. The Frost God seemed to be a level 2 god, a lower god of the Ice God. When the Ice and Water gods became gods at the same time, they were like sisters. Back then, when Shui Yuer asked Shui Yuer to come to the absolute Ice Forbidden Land, it should be to let Shui Yuer inherit the Water God's godhood. Unfortunately, Shui Yuer's aptitude was not enough and did not receive the Water God's recognition. Even if she cultivated for a few years, it was still far from enough. The water god's requirements were too high. Shui Yuer only received 5 tests from the water god. However, it was also these 5 tests that allowed Shui Yuer to receive the frost god's recognition. During these years, other than playing with Xiao Wu, Tang San was also allowed to inherit the Azura god's godhood. However, he needed Xiao Wu as an opportunity. Thus, he knew of many godhoods in the god world. However, when he saw his companions inherit the godhood one by one, he felt happy. At the same time, Tang San also revived the great Ming's second Ming. "Alright, what about Zhu Qing and Rongrong?" Xiao Wu asked curiously. "Did you guys not have any news about them during these years? When my brother and I came to the 5 Colors Mountain a few decades ago, we saw Rongrong. She has already become the water god. As for Zhu Qing, I don't know." At this time, Shui Yuer said with a smile, "Because Big Sister and Rongrong are the ice and water gods, they usually cultivate together. It is very beneficial for them. A few years ago, Big Sister told me that they went to the extreme north to help the soul beasts cultivate. After that, they went to the southern sea, saying that they wanted to see the seas dry up and the rocks crumble. Rongrong should be coming as well. Big Sister said that she would cultivate together with Rongrong after going to the god world. Big Sister is the water god. After parting with Rongrong, she said that she wanted to see what the other side of the sea was like. Big Sister Zhu Qing inherited the wind god's godhood. I heard from Big Sister that they seemed to have met before. After that, Big Sister Zhu Qing went to the illusionary moon region. There were 2 godhoods there. One was the illusion god and the other was the moon god. Shui Yuer hesitated for a moment before continuing. This place was first found by the Federation's supreme leader, Bibidon. Then, Bibidon brought her disciple, Hulaina, to this place and inherited the illusion god's godhood. Chapter 1045. Hearing this, everyone understood. At that time, Hulaina was with Zhu Qing. Zhu Qing and Hulaina entered the illusionary moon zone together. I heard that the moon god took a fancy to her. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. The wind god is one of the 7 elemental gods, the same as Fatty's fire god. Tang San said in surprise. However, the moon god is also a special existence among the 2nd-level gods. Compared to many 1st-level gods, it is not much inferior. I didn't expect that Zhu Qing would be valued by this god. Can she inherit 2 god positions? Xiao Wu asked curiously. Like you, big brother? Tang San shook his head and said, I don't know. Maybe. Damn, that Zhu Qing is too powerful. Ma Hongjun shrunk his neck. Among our companies, besides third brother, isn't she the strongest? Tang San smiled and said, Actually, the 1st-level and 2nd-level gods only represent the upper limit. However, it doesn't mean that there is no chance to break through. The more god positions one has, the harder it is to cultivate. The progress will be even slower. Unless one's talent is amazing, cultivating 2 gods at the same time is better than cultivating one. That was the reason. Everyone nodded. Only after becoming a god-level expert would they understand that the god level was not the limit. The road was not the end. As for how far one could go, it would depend on one's own efforts. Everyone nodded in agreement. At this moment, a light breeze blew. Third brother, you are very similar to what Wang Feng said. Just as everyone was talking, a clear laughter rang out. Hearing this voice, everyone knew who had come. In the distance, a light breeze flashed by. Zhu Qing and Ning Rongrong appeared in the distance. One of them was wearing a light pink dress. After 100 years, it seemed as if nothing had changed. Her body emitted a faint aura that was as gentle as water. Her delicate face was still as beautiful and moving as before. It had a watery luster and a bit of playfulness. She was looking at everyone. In comparison, Zhu Qing's aura was as quiet as the bright moon at night. It was cold and beautiful. When his gaze landed on the five-colored mountain, his eyes were filled with the gentleness of the wind. Wow, Zhuqing, Rongrong, I was just talking about you too, and here you are. Xiao Wu and the other girls walked over and hugged Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing. Zhu Zhuqing pursed her lips and nodded slightly. Tang San looked at Zhu Zhuqing in surprise. When Zhu Zhuqing appeared just now, even he had a hard time detecting it. One had to know that as one of the 7 elemental gods, the wind god was most proficient in the law of wind, which represented the elements and speed. Extreme speed. At the same time, the moon god was very special among the second-level gods. What was special about the moon god was that she had a powerful ability to hide her aura. It was rumored that in the god realm, even the god king would have a hard time finding the moon god. With these two added together, Zhu Zhuqing's strength could be considered top-notch among first-level gods. When Zhu Zhuqing entered the god realm and cultivated to the level of a first-level god, few first-level gods would be able to defeat her. Moreover, if she had 2 godhoods, Zhu Zhuqing's upper limit would be even higher. It seems that Big Brother Feng has really changed them a lot, Tang San thought to himself. After becoming a god, Tang San could feel how much Big Brother Feng had changed them. It was potential. Many times, Big Brother Feng had raised their potential and unearthed it. That was why their godhoods had changed so much. Take the water god Rongrong for example. As one of the 7 elemental gods, the water god had the lowest attack power. However, her support ability was freakishly strong. The 9-colored goddess that Xin Lingqi had inherited was a water god, and the support gods here were all superior gods. One could imagine. Moreover, when the water god and ice god worked together, the combat power they could unleash was top-notch among first-level gods. However, they hadn't entered the god realm to cultivate yet. The god realm had special energy and cultivation speed was completely incomparable in the Douluo world. Although a day in the god realm was equivalent to a year in the mortal world, cultivating a day in the god realm was many times better than cultivating a year in the Douluo world. It's been 100 years. I didn't expect to meet again. Tang San looked at everyone and smiled. But this time, we're here to say goodbye to Big Brother Feng. We're going to the God Realm next. Once we enter the God Realm, it'll be impossible to return to the Douluo world. Everyone nodded slightly. The God Realm had its rules. In the past 100 years, they had taken care of everything that needed to be taken care of. For example, leaving behind descendants for their families or grooming successors. They were all prepared. They couldn't just ascend to the God Realm without saying a word. For example, Dai Mubai, as a member of the Star Luo royal family, had to leave behind descendants. At the same time, he had to represent the Star Luo side of the Martial Spirit Federation. Moreover, they were gods. There was no need to say much about the talents of their descendant. For example, Oscar and Xin Lingqi were much freer. They didn't want to leave behind descendants. Ning Rongrong nurtured a few talented girls for the 7 treasure glazed tile sect. She was now a water god. Although her strength hadn't reached the limit, it was still very easy for her to change the 7 treasure glazed tile sect. Originally, Ning Rongrong wanted to bring Ning Fengji to the god realm, but Ning Fengji refused. He said that everyone had their own opportunities and there was no need to force them. Rongrong, I'll be satisfied if you can become a god and be together with that kid, Ning Fengji said at the time. Ning Rongrong could only shake her head helplessly. However, she still planned to bring her father to live in the god realm after a period of time. In fact, after consuming the beautiful silk tulip, Ning Fengji's martial soul had evolved and his aptitude had increased. He was qualified to enter the god realm and even inherit a godhood. The sword Douluo and bone Douluo had also found their loved ones during the past century. They had children and inherited their martial souls. Actually, they hadn't found their loved ones. Come to think of it, this was a rule set by the Martial Spirit Federation. For titled Douluos who had reached rank 99, if they couldn't find a partner and give birth to a suitable child to inherit their martial souls, then the Federation had the right to distribute them. When this rule was first announced, many titled Douluos were very embarrassed. In particular, those titled Douluos who had been obsessed with cultivation for their entire lives and had been single for 70, 80, or even over 100 years. It could be said that they were given a second chance under this rule. After all, many martial souls were quite rare. After discussing with many soul masters, Bibidon, the supreme leader of the Martial Spirit Federation, came up with a series of family planning policies for titled Douluos. This was to ensure that those powerful martial souls could continue to live on. Furthermore, if this continued, martial souls would become even more diverse in the future. The world of soul masters would definitely become even more prosperous. At the same time, as the supreme leader, Bibidon was looking into the future, and he even came up with some measures to protect soul beasts. The main reason for this was that after the continent became more prosperous, powerful soul masters were bound to spring up like mushrooms after a spring rain. Before a method to replace soul beasts with soul rings was found, soul beasts couldn't be killed wantonly. Otherwise, the world of soul masters would definitely decline in the future. Chapter 1046. When this policy was first announced, it was actually opposed by the soul master world. However, after Bibidon brought up what happened in the extreme north, the soul master world stopped objecting. This was because even though they had been affected by the soul beast army, they had been saved by 8 powerful soul beasts. It's hard to imagine that Bibidon was the one who proposed this policy. Dai Mubai sighed. Back then, she even tried to kill Xiao Wu. Dai Mubai seemed to have thought of something and quickly shut his mouth. Xiao Wu laughed and said, "It should be Brother Feng's influence. Otherwise, she wouldn't have done this." However, I have to say that ever since the Soul Beast Protection Law was announced, the number of soul beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest has decreased. However, this can only slow down the number of soul beasts. After many years, the number of soul beasts will gradually decrease. Xiao Wu sighed as she thought of this. Tang San hugged Xiao Wu and whispered, "Don't worry, there will be a solution in the future. After we become gods, there will be a way to change this. Furthermore, Brother Feng won't allow this to happen. His soul beast underlings are each stronger than the other. Brother Feng won't allow his soul beast underlings to become other people's soul rings. The Azura god told me that Brother Feng once made a great wish. After he breaks the seal, he will definitely change the cultivation system of soul masters and soul beasts. Otherwise, Bibidon wouldn't have made such a law. It's obviously to act as a buffer. I believe that not long after Brother Feng breaks the seal, his soul beasts will definitely become gods. When that time comes, Xiao Wu and your soul beasts won't have to transform into humans. They can also become gods through cultivation." Xiao Wu nodded and looked at the Rainbow Mountain. Everyone was talking about the changes that had happened in the continent in the past 100 years. It was as if they were talking to each other, but also as if they were talking to Wang Feng inside the Rainbow Mountain. After the continent was unified for 100 years, the changes were already very obvious. Of course, this was under the leadership of a god-ranked expert like Bibidon. There was almost no opposition. The Federation was highly unified. In the future, when Bibidon entered the God realm, what would happen to the Martial Spirit Federation? No one would know. Several days later. According to the Azura god, if it's sealed properly in a few thousand years at most. Tang San looked at the 5-colored mountain and said, "This mountain will start to leak out the residual life energy sealed in Brother Feng's body. These energy residues are very likely to change the energy structure of the Douluo world. When that time comes, this world might experience a world-shaking change." Everyone was stunned. "But that's a matter for the future," Tang San smiled as he looked at the 5-colored sacred mountain. "Big Brother Feng, we're going to the God realm soon. I'll be waiting for you in the deity world." The others also looked at the five-colored sacred mountain, their hearts filled with emotion. At this moment, the divine mountain trembled slightly. Gusts of cool breeze swept up, as if it was sending them off. Everyone was stunned as they looked at the divine mountain in shock. These 5 divine mountains represented the seals of the supreme laws of the divine realm's 5 great divine kings. They were completely unable to sense what was going on inside. But now Wang Feng was able to cause the sacred mountain to shake. Everyone looked at each other. Then they laughed heartily as they soared into the sky. They tore through the void and stepped into the God realm. Only Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing were slower. Zhuqing, Wang Feng definitely isn't just the two of us. Ning Rongrong pouted and said, if he wasn't the first to marry me, I wouldn't have become a living widow. Zhu Zhuqing suddenly thought of Bibidon. When she and Hu Laina were traveling the continent, Hu Laina was the first to be recognized by the wind god and received the wind god's inheritance. After that, Bibidon found the two of them and brought Hu Laina to the illusory moon region. It was a very mysterious region in the continent. At the same time, he told her about the 2 secret techniques. He said that Wang Feng taught them. At that time, Zhu Zhuqing knew that the relationship between Wang Feng and the Pope was much closer than she had imagined. Casting aside those messy thoughts, Zhu Zhuqing bit her lip and looked at the 5-colored sacred mountain. There were at least 5 of them. Ning Rongrong still didn't know about this matter. If she knew, who knew what kind of temper she would throw? Back then, they only said Qianrenshu. How could there be Bibidon? They were clearly bastards. Zhu Zhuqing looked at the 5-colored sacred mountain in her heart. She was very reluctant to part with it. However, everything would have to wait until he broke the seal. Zhu Zhuqing softly said in her heart, even in the divine realm, I won't be inferior to those 2. Several figures turned into streaks of light and disappeared into the horizon, entering the divine realm. A few days later, 3 more streams of light rose up from the 5 sacred mountains and entered the divine world. At this point, as the continent's supreme leader, Bibidon, after selecting the next successor of the Federation, ascended to the divine realm with the angel god Qianrenshu and the illusion god Hu Laina. In order to commemorate this peerless figure, who had led the Martial Spirit Federation for 100 years, the Martial Spirit Federation had erected statues of Bibidong all over the continent for people to worship and remember. Just like that, 1,000 years passed. To be precise, it was 3,000 years later. 3,000 years after the Martial Spirit Federation was established on this day, the 5-colored sacred mountain started to release some energy. Swish swish in the forest around the 5-colored mountain, a 9,000-year red mist flower gently swayed its petals as it faced the sun. The sun here wasn't the sun, but the 5-colored sacred mountain. For 3,000 years, the 5-colored sacred mountain stood tall like the 5 divine pillars of the great star Do forest. Those who lived near it could feel the true sunlight. At this moment, streaks of energy started to seep out from the first purple sacred mountain. The red mist flower closest to it was the first to feel this energy. Immediately, its cultivation started to skyrocket. In just a few months, it became a 10,000-year soul beast. To it, this was an unbelievable increase. Furthermore, this energy was continuously seeping out from the sacred mountain. After that, the Martial Spirit Federation defined the energy seeping out from the first purple mountain as a major event that changed the trajectory of the world. They called it the 5-colored mountain's first energy tide. In the beginning, it only covered an area of a few hundred meters around the sacred mountain. Because of this, large numbers of soul beasts started to gather here. This change was discovered by human soul masters a few months later. After that, they sent large numbers of high-tier soul beasts to investigate. However, they didn't find anything. Fortunately, the soul beasts didn't leave the 5-colored sacred mountain's territory, so they weren't much of a threat. However, in the following 300 years, the energy seeping out from the first sacred mountain started to expand. It extended to half of the great star Doe forest. In the forest, countless plants and soul beasts started to become stronger. Because of this energy, they started to mutate. Their numbers also started to increase. These continuous changes made the Martial Spirit Federation more vigilant. They started to send large numbers of Soul Master armies to guard the Great Star Doe Forest. At the same time, they prohibited any Soul Masters from entering the Great Star Doe Forest. Fortunately, the soul beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest fought for half of the forest's territory during this period. A war between soul beasts that lasted for decades broke out. The Martial Spirit Federation called this war between soul beasts the First Great War of Soul Beasts. Chapter 1047. In this war, the ones who benefited the most were naturally the Soul Masters on the human side. 100 years after the first energy tide, countless 10,000-year soul beasts were born in the Great Star Doe Forest. There were even 10,000-year soul beasts. Many soul beasts died in this war, and a large batch of powerful soul masters emerged in the world of soul masters. This was known as the Golden Age of Soul Masters in the Martial Spirit Federation for 3,000 years. Because of the Soul Beast War, this era only lasted for a few decades. It was said that as long as one stepped into the Great Star Doe Forest, they would be able to pick up any soul ring they wanted. However, not long after, the second godly mountain of the Five-Colored Mountain started to release some energy residue. This time, in less than 300 years, the energy tide that emerged from the Five-Colored Mountain covered the entire Great Star Doe Forest. This time, no soul beast war broke out in the Great Star Doe Forest. Under this energy tide, the soul beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest started to become stronger. This caused the number of soul beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest to increase again. The soul beasts' cultivations started to increase rapidly. This increase was a huge threat to the Martial Spirit Federation at that time. Once the soul beasts became stronger and stronger, a terrifying war would break out in the three political regions that bordered the Great Star Doe Forest. History said, the second energy tide of the Five-Colored Mountain. At that time, the Great Star Doe Forest was also known as the Forbidden Zone for humans. The Five-Colored Mountain was also known as the Forbidden Zone. Even titled Douluo didn't dare to enter the outer regions of the Great Star Doe Forest. In the 100 years after the second energy tide, the Martial Spirit Federation called it the Dark Age of Treading on Thin Ice. This was because the entire human race was facing the threat of an uprising in the Great Star Doe Forest. Just like that, another 300 years passed. After these 3,000 years, in just 1,000 years, the Martial Spirit Federation fell from the top to the bottom. They went through two completely opposite eras. The turning point came in the 4,000 years after the Martial Spirit Federation was established. That year, the third godly mountain started to release energy residue. This leakage was called the Third Energy Tide of the Five-Colored Mountain by the Martial Spirit Federation in the future. It was also called the Life Tide of Humans. This was also the beginning of the change in the continent. This was because after this energy tide, dense energy started to spread from the Great Star Doe Forest to human territory. This special and dense energy brought about a huge change to human soul masters. At the same time, a second soul beast war broke out. This war was between the soul beasts of the Great Star Doe Forest and all the soul beast forests that bordered the Great Star Doe Forest. It was to fight for the core territory of the Five-Colored Mountain. Later on, the 8 overlords of the soul beasts of the extreme north took action to quell the war. After the era of treading on thin ice, humanity finally began to benefit from the third energy tide and the second great war of the soul beasts. Humanity had gone from a dark age where they were treading on thin ice to a prosperous era in the history of the Soul Master world. After another 500 years, the fourth white mountain of the five-colored sacred mountains began to emit energy again. This mysterious energy began to spread throughout the entire continent. It covered the extreme north, north, south, east, west, and so on. In another 500 years, this golden age would reach its peak. As the saying went, titled Douluo are inferior to dogs, and transcendent Douluo are everywhere. It was also because of this that the demand for soul beasts in the world of soul cultivators increased day by day due to their rapid cultivation speed. Humans were too tolerant, and their cultivation speed was many times faster than soul beasts under this kind of cultivation boom. In this era, even though the number of soul beasts had increased exponentially, they were unable to satisfy the needs of human soul masters. Under such circumstances, the Martial Spirit Federation's Soul Beast Protection Law, which had lasted for 4,000 years, was torn apart. Humans and soul beasts began to fight even more intensely. This also led to the Third Soul Beast War, which had reached its peak, breaking out. This great war of the soul beasts was no longer a battle between soul beasts. It was between soul beasts and humans. However, the war lasted for less than a year before the 8 overlords of the extreme north took action again and temporarily quelled the war. This reduced the number of casualties. After that, the Martial Spirit Federation re-established the Soul Beast Protection Law. It was signed by the highest leader of the Central Martial Spirit Palace, the 12 Douluo Heavenly Kings, and Soul Masters could no longer violate it. After this war, the Martial Spirit Federation changed the 5-colored mountain to the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. At the same time, many Soul Masters' foundations were unstable due to their rapid cultivation speed. As they progressed, even titled Douluo faced the risk of their cultivation collapsing, or even self-destructing. This danger caused many Soul Masters in the world of Soul Masters to start researching new cultivation method. After 100 years, the first titled Douluo successfully condensed a soul core. This symbolized the beginning of a revolution in the world of soul masters. The appearance of soul cores caused countless soul masters to condense soul cores due to their rapid cultivation speed. They strengthened their bodies, stabilized their soul power, and increased the quality of their soul power. After the concept of soul cores appeared, the number of titled Douluo decreased sharply. However, their overall fighting strength and safety increased exponentially. The price was that the difficulty of becoming a titled Douluo increased. In this golden era of cultivation, the appearance of soul cores caused the world of soul masters to place their focus on cultivation. Just like that, the Martial Spirit Federation had been established for more than 5,000 years. The 5th mountain of the Star Battle Sacred Mountain started to release an energy tide. This was also known as the Star Battle Sacred Mountain's final energy tide. This energy tide caused the energy of heaven and earth to spread towards the boundless ocean beyond the continent. This was also another turning point of the Douluo continent. From the first energy tide of the 5-colored mountain to the 5th energy tide of the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. It spanned more than 2,000 years of time. From the Great Star Doe Forest to the entire continent there was a huge change. The number of soul masters increased and became stronger. The number of soul beasts also increased. In these 5,000 years, the Martial Spirit Federation could be said to have reached its true peak. Otherwise, the 5-colored mountain wouldn't have been changed to the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. Countless soul masters and soul beasts regarded this as the holy land of the continent. However, it was also this 5th energy tide that caused the dense energy to spread beyond the ocean. Under such circumstances, the Martial Spirit Federation didn't know that a huge threat was slowly approaching from the other side of the ocean for the remaining 1,000 years. The Martial Spirit Federation was established for 6,000 years. On a certain day, in the Great Star Doe Forest, Star Battle Sacred Mountain, 2 figures flashed. A man and a woman, 2 silhouettes stood there. However, the 2 of them were also holding hands with a little girl who looked to be less than 2 years old. She looked like she was carved out of jade. Tong Tong, you're 1 year old in the God realm. Daddy and Mommy brought you here today because we want to introduce you to our best friend. One of the ladies pointed at the towering Star Battle Sacred Mountain and covered her mouth as she giggled. He's called Wang Feng. He's your Uncle Feng. Author's note: there are still a few chapters left in the evening. The plot has officially begun. Pig Trotters has broken his seal and added a soul ring to his second martial soul. Chapter 1048. Uncle Feng. The little girl's eyes darted around as she stared at the five-colored sacred mountain in shock. She was only 1 year old. However, as the daughter of Tang San, who was now a god king, the little girl's intelligence had already been awakened. Her mischievous appearance was somewhat similar to the woman beside her. These two people were Tang San and Xiao Wu. This little girl was naturally their daughter. Daddy, Mommy, this Uncle Feng must be very important to you, right? The little girl was wearing a light blue princess dress. She had pinkish blue hair, and her eyes were light pink. She looked a little like Xiao Wu. The sea god's trident symbol was faintly discernible on her forehead. Of course he's very important. Tang San patted the little girl's head. He's Daddy's brother. I think I remember something, the little girl suddenly exclaimed. I remember Auntie Rongrong and Auntie Qing talking about him. Tang San and Xiao Wu looked at each other when they heard this. Baby, when did you hear them talking about him? Xiao Wu asked. I think it was when I was sleeping, the little girl said excitedly. What, Wang Feng? Love me, love me. Wang Feng, I miss you. Is it this Uncle Feng? What's their relationship with Uncle Feng? Tang San, Xiao Wu, the two of them coughed and said, it's like a daddy and a mommy. Then why don't they have a baby? Little Wudong asked. Ahem, your Uncle Feng has always been in this mountain. He hasn't had time to give birth to a baby with Auntie Rong and Auntie Qing. Xiao Wu replied. Little Wudong nodded and said, I think I heard Uncle Z and Auntie Lu mention a human called Wang Feng. Is it this Uncle Feng too? Tang San smiled and nodded. Yes, this mountain was created by your Uncle Z and Auntie Lu. Little Wudong was curious when she heard this. Is Uncle Feng not human? Little Wudong looked up at the five-colored mountain. Otherwise, why would he stay in this mountain, the two of them? At this moment a breeze blew past. It lifted many branches and leaves on the Rainbow Mountain. The five-colored mountain had clearly been taken care of. The tree branches and leaves were just decorations, making the five-colored mountain look even less beautiful. Your Uncle Feng is a person, but he probably doesn't want to be a person anymore, so he hid in this mountain. A sly smile flashed across Xiao Wu's face. Tang San threw a dirty look at Xiao Wu. I don't believe it. Uncle Z said that he and Auntie Lu sealed a person called Wang Feng here for the safety of the realm of the gods in the future, Little Wudong said seriously. Mother, are you speaking ill of Uncle Feng? Xiao Wu patted Little Wudong's head and said, My baby is so smart. But if your Uncle Feng wakes up now and goes to the god realm, he would probably be in a terrible fix. He probably can't wait to return to the mountain. Why? Little Wudong didn't understand. Xiao Wu covered her mouth and laughed. Tang San also smiled helplessly. The current situation in the god realm was truly indescribable. A day in the god realm was equivalent to a year in Douluo. 6,000 years had passed in Douluo, but only 10 years had passed in the god realm. But in these 10 years, the god realm had been turned upside down. As the godly king of the god realm committee, he was extremely troublesome. There was no other reason. Some gods were simply too strong. Especially Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing. On the other side were Bibidon and Qianrenshu. There were also other gods mixed in. They often fought in the god realm, and their fights were earth-shattering. Moreover, the strength of these four was unknown. They were terrifyingly strong. Especially Bibidon. The Rakshasa god was only a first-level god in the god realm. Logically speaking, she shouldn't be so strong. But even Zhu Zhuqing had two god positions. She couldn't beat Bibidon. It was really strange. Sometimes, when they fought, it would affect the cultivation and survival of many gods. But they didn't dare to offend them. So they went to the God Realm Committee. After he inherited the Azura God position, he became the God Realm Enforcer. But he really didn't know what to do with these people. He could only give them a verbal warning. Especially in the first few years, there would be a small fight every 3 days and a big fight every 7 days. These years, it was much better. Bibidon and Qianrenxue were in seclusion. They didn't fight as often. Sometimes, when they fought, even the brothers of the Shrek's 7 monsters would be involved. Wasn't he, the godly king, in a terrible fix? Xiao Wu looked at little Wudong and said, "You're still young. You won't understand these things. You'll know when you grow up." Little Wudong pouted. "If Brother Feng wakes up, I think they'll be more obedient." Tang San shook his head and sighed. "I wonder how he's doing now." At this moment, little Wudong suddenly ran forward and lifted some branches. She said excitedly, "Wow, Daddy, Mommy, look! There's handwriting left behind by Aunt Rong and Aunt Qing. Did they secretly come down to take a look?" Tang San and Xiao Wu stared blankly for a moment. Glancing over, they really did see a few words. They were speechless. This handwriting couldn't have been left behind in those 100 years. This was because this mountain was formed by the godly king's laws. At that time, even if they had become gods, they couldn't have left their handwriting on this mountain. It was only after they became first-tier gods that they could barely leave their handwriting on this mountain of laws. After counting carefully, Tang San realized that these 5 mountains all had a name. He. At this moment, little Wudong suddenly laughed. The branches in front of him suddenly condensed into little Wudong's appearance. She was standing in front of little Wudong and playing with her. It's Brother Feng's spiritual power. Tang San's heart skipped a beat. He whispered, "It seems like the seal on Brother Feng has weakened. At most, it'll take another 4,000 years." Xiao Wu nodded slightly. Spiritual power could temporarily break through the restraints of the 5 mountain of laws and control objects. Even Tang San, who was a godly king, couldn't do this. Brother Feng shouldn't be cultivating in the god realm. Why is his spiritual power stronger than ours? Xiao Wu asked curiously. There's a bottleneck in spiritual power. Talent. In addition, he's comprehending the life law every day. This has a strong effect on spiritual power. Tang San said, however, the energy in Douluo world is getting denser. If this continues, Brother Feng still can't comprehend the life law and control the overflowing life energy. I reckon that even if the soul masters in this world don't become gods, they're very likely to break through the limits and laws of rank 100. Hearing this, Xiao Wu was shocked. Is that possible? Xiao Wu asked curiously. It's possible. Tang San said, the God realm is strong because of its powerful immortal spirit energy. This is a high-level energy that surpasses many planes. With this, we can cultivate to a higher level. The Douluo world is the same. If it continues to overflow, it will raise the level of the Douluo world to a higher level. Even if it can't compare to the God realm, it's far stronger than other worlds. End of chapter. Chapter 1049. The life origin in Brother Feng's body is terrifying. According to the 5 great godly kings, this is only the remnant energy that has seeped out from his body. It has only seeped out for a few thousand years, but it can change the Douluo world to this state. Even the godly kings can't do that. Tang San looked at little Wudong, giggle, and the little person formed by the leaves running around. He pondered and said, however, once Brother Feng understands it, this energy shouldn't seep out anymore. However, even with the changes over these years, the titled Douluo and soul beasts in the Douluo world are much stronger than before. They are much more powerful than our era. Xiao Wu nodded slightly. The leaves in the distance changed into various forms and teased little Wudong. Daddy, Mommy, isn't Uncle Feng inside? Little Wudong hugged a little bear formed by leaves and rode on it. She giggled and said, "Is this controlled by him?" Tang San laughed and said, "Of course, your Uncle Feng is very powerful. Even your Uncle Z can't beat him now." Little Wudong was astonished when she heard this. Who was Uncle Z? He was one of the most powerful people in the God world. Uncle Feng is so powerful. Little Wudong clapped her hands and played for a while. She looked at the Rainbow Mountain. "Oh yes, brother. Did you sense that thing's aura when you came down?" Xiao Wu suddenly asked. "No." Tang San shook his head. "It must have used a special method to hide its aura. It must have escaped to another continent." "That's dangerous." Xiao Wu sighed. Sister Lu said that thing is related to the traitor of the God world. It might cause a commotion in the human world. "You don't have to worry about that." Tang San pondered and said, "Brother Feng should be able to break out of the seal soon. When that happens, he should have thought of a solution to the problem between soul beasts and soul masters. The Douluo continent will definitely change because of him. When that happens, he will have to stay in this world for a while to raise the power of his second martial soul to rank 100 so that he can inherit the Origin Calamity God King. That thing can't possibly be Brother Feng's match." "That's true." Xiao Wu nodded. The two of them brought little Wudong here to play and chat for a while. They were about to leave. Before she left, little Wudong looked at the Rainbow Mountain reluctantly. "Goodbye, Uncle Feng." Little Wudong waved at the Rainbow Mountain. Countless leaves also formed a giant hand and waved at Tang San and the others. Inside Five-Color Mountain, Wang Feng sighed. Unknowingly, so many years had passed. Tang San and Xiao Wu both had daughters. Forget it, forget it. Even in the God realm, more than 10 years should have passed, right? Although it had been a long time, Wang Feng could still see Rongrong and the others coming to visit him. I wonder what has become of the continent. Wang Feng did not know. Right now, the continent was undergoing earth-shattering changes. More than 6,000 years after the Martial Spirit Federation was established, the torrent of energy that spread across the surface of the sea caused the sea spirit beasts in the ocean to riot and overturn. 300 years later, the countless sea spirit beasts in the ocean became even more powerful. The number of powerful soul beasts increased day by day, and the violent sea spirit beasts launched an attack on the entire continent. At this crucial moment, the titled Douluo of the Sea God's Island, the 8 overlords of the soul beasts in the extreme north, and the 12 Douluo heavenly kings of the Martial Spirit Federation joined forces. After forcing these sea spirit beasts to retreat, the Sea God's Island gave birth to another Sea God's priest, who started to communicate with the continent. This battle was called the Fourth Great War of Soul Beasts. This time, it was a battle between sea spirit beasts, human soul masters, and land spirit beasts. The sea spirit beasts were indignant, and they overturned the seas and rivers. This caused another continent on the other side of the Douluo world to collide with the Douluo continent even faster. The collision between the two continents lasted for several years. Countless mountains and forests were formed. The glaciers in the extreme north underwent huge changes. Due to the collision between the continents, they started to collapse, and their surface area expanded again. As the 8 overlords of the extreme north were completely unified, they quickly conquered the newly merged glaciers in the extreme north after the huge changes in the extreme north. Several years after the collision between the continents, another 2 overlords appeared in the extreme north. They were known as the 3 overlords in the future. They dominated the extreme north, and no human military force dared to step into the extreme north. At the same time, the famous Evil Demon Forest was formed after the collision between the two continents. Other than the Evil Demon Forest, there were several extremely evil and dangerous soul beast forests. Due to the energy tide, they grew rapidly. After that, the ancient empire on the other continent, the Sun-Moon Empire. Regardless of whether it was their system or ideology, they were in great conflict with the Martial Spirit Federation. Due to this conflict, a war broke out. However, it was a one-sided war. After the Third Energy Tide and the Second Great War of Soul Beasts, the Martial Spirit Federation's Soul Masters had already developed a cultivation method for soul cores. In terms of high-level fighting strength, the Martial Spirit Federation completely suppressed the Sun-Moon Empire, which focused on soul tool technology. In less than 10 years, they defeated the Sun-Moon Empire and unified the continent, which became the Douluo continent. The defeated Sun-Moon Empire did not give up. They relied on the evil mountain range formed by the continent to stay in the west and continue to develop soul tool technology. After the Martial Spirit Federation defeated the Sun-Moon Empire, they did not continue to invade. This was because the Sun-Moon Empire's soul tool technology had become increasingly powerful after the 5 energy tides, and they posed a great threat to the Empire. In the end, the evil soul beasts in the evil demon forest could not be suppressed. Over 9,000 years later, the energy tide on the Star Do Sacred Mountain started to shrink. This shrinkage caused the evil soul beast forests, which were growing stronger and stronger, and several other evil soul beast forests could not help but rebel. As the evil demon forest was located at the western edge, the energy tide was weaker, and these evil soul beasts could tolerate the changes in their environment. They wanted to snatch humans and other soul beast forests. This rebellion affected more than half of the Douluo continent. The Martial Spirit Federation and the Sun-Moon Empire were severely affected. This was also known as the Fifth Great War of Soul Beasts. After the Fifth Energy Tide, Soul Masters were struggling, but Soul Beasts were also becoming stronger. The remaining Soul Beast forests, such as the Star Do Sacred Mountain, the Extreme North, and the Setting Sun, were relatively peaceful. There had never been a Soul Beast rebellion in the Extreme North. The first 8 Soul Beast Overlords, then the 10 Soul Beast Overlords, could be said to have dominated the entire Extreme North. The Great Star Do Forest did not rebel after the First and Second Great War of Soul Beasts. It was even calmer. However, the evil soul beasts in the evil demon forest were born because of the collision between the continents. They could not control their madness and bloodlust. They launched powerful attacks on humans and other soul beasts. End of chapter. Chapter 1050. The strength of the evil soul beasts exceeded the Martial Spirit Federation's expectations. This war was also the last war against soul beasts. It was also the most tragic war in the Martial Spirit Federation's 9,000 years of history. The fifth soul beast formation lasted for several hundred years. The area covered by the evil soul beasts went from the initial evil soul forest to the Great Star Do forest and the extreme north. Otherwise, half of the Douluo continent wouldn't have been affected. In the 9,800th year of the Federation's history, the Martial Spirit Federation teamed up with the 10 overlords of the extreme north, the powerful soul beasts of the Great Star Do forest, and the Sun-Moon Empire to defeat the evil soul beasts. They suppressed the evil soul beasts in the evil demon forest. Because of this war, the Douluo continent suffered heavy losses. The Martial Spirit Federation, which was mainly made up of soul masters, and the Sun-Moon Empire, which was mainly made up of soul tool technology, entered a stagnant state in terms of cultivation standards and soul tool technology. The Great Star Do forest and the extreme north also lost many soul beasts. The Douluo continent entered a stage of recovery and development after the war. 10,000 years later, the energy tide of the Star Do Sacred Mountain started to calm down. It no longer leaked terrifying life energy like before. Instead, it exploded with energy torrents every once in a while. At this time, as the Sun-Moon Empire gradually recovered and developed after the war, the conflict between the Martial Spirit Federation and the Sun-Moon Empire increased. The conflict between soul masters, soul beasts, and soul tools also became more and more intense, somewhere in the God realm. Tang San sat cross-legged in the sky and looked at the clouds in the sky. He looked a little depressed. At this moment, An anxious voice sounded. Third brother, it's not good. Little 7, that girl, is missing. The moment the voice sounded, a figure walked out from the void and anxiously walked to Tang San's side. The girl was wearing a pink dress and had a scorpion braid. Her beautiful face was full of worry. Missing? Tang San was stunned. Where did she run off to this mischievous place? Where else can she go? Xiao Wu snapped. She took out a small note. Take a look. Tang San looked at the note and was stunned. Dear father and mother, Tong is almost 11 years old. I don't want to live under your wings anymore. I want to leave the God realm and go to the lower world to play. I want to know how mom and dad became gods step by step. She wanted to know the stories of other aunts and uncles. Also, Tong wants to know if Uncle Feng is still down there. In short, Tong has too many things she wants to know. Dad, Mom, don't worry. Tong will be fine. I will take good care of myself, hee. After reading it, Tang San was dumbfounded. She went to the Douluo continent? Tang San took a deep breath. That's right, brother. Hurry up and bring Tong back. Xiao Wu looked worried. She's still young and she's going down alone. How dangerous is that? I'm afraid not, however. Tang San's expression was incomparably solemn. Do you still remember the history of the God realm that Destruction and the others told us? Back then, the six-winged dark angel who betrayed the God realm fell and obtained great power to become a God king, causing an uproar in the God realm at that time? Of course I know this. Xiao Wu frowned slightly. But what does this have to do with Xiao Qi? Tang San suddenly stood up and stared into the distance. Don't you know where the six-winged dark angel fell? That's how he obtained power comparable to a god king? He betrayed the god realm and joined the dark demon realm, the great enemy of the god realm at that time. If not for the 5 god kings' quick reaction, the god realm would have been overturned. The dark demon realm wanted to use the 12-winged dark angel to cause unrest in the god realm and take advantage of the situation. After the plan failed, they fell silent. Recently, they have been restless again. When I went down last time, didn't I sense their aura and come down? Have you forgotten? A few days ago, the dark demon realm found out from somewhere that the 2 fellows, Kindness and Evil, ran down to the god realm to play in the name of a bet. The 2 young couples who replaced them are not stable yet. Taking this opportunity, they secretly cut off the connection between the God Realm Committee and the Douluo continent and several planes. Now, they are very likely to attack the most powerful Douluo continent. Tang San said in a deep voice. Our God Realm can't sense the Douluo continent now. I originally wanted to go to the Douluo continent to see Brother Feng's situation. This is very likely to be a great calamity for the Douluo continent and also a great calamity for our God Realm Committee. After hearing this, Xiao Wu was stunned. Then Tong, she went down to the God Realm. Her memory is still. This is too dangerous. Xiao Wu's face turned pale. Don't worry. Tang San's tone was very serious. I discussed with Destruction and decided to stabilize the defense of the God Realm Committee first to prevent other sneak attacks from the Dark Demon Realm. Tong should be fine. After all, Brother Feng is still down there. As long as he breaks out of the seal, he will become the Origin Tribulation God King at most in a few years. If the Dark Demon Realm dares to attack the Douluo continent, they will be the ones to suffer. Moreover, De Ming and Er Ming are also down there. I hope so. Xiao Wu sighed softly. But I'll have to trouble Brother Feng. Tong is too naughty. I think you've spoiled Tong too much. That's why she's not afraid of anything. It's good to let Brother Feng teach her a lesson. Tang San couldn't help but say, in terms of training others, Brother Feng's methods are much better than ours. It's also time to let Tong suffer some setback. Think about how we survived in the past. Brother Feng won't show any mercy. You don't believe that I spoil my daughter? Xiao Wu said angrily. Okay. Fortunately, we brought Tong Tong to see Brother Feng once in advance. He should be able to recognize her. Douluo Continent, Great Star Doe Forest. After the Fifth Soul Beast War, the number of soul beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest sharply decreased because of the invasion of the evil soul beast. It was no longer as prosperous as it was 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, when the Great Star Doe Forest was at its most prosperous, there were countless 10,000-year soul beasts running rampant in the outer region of the forest. Even 100,000-year soul beasts could be seen. The inner region of the forest was even more dangerous. The closer one was to the Star Doe Mountain, the more dangerous it was. It was a pity that the forest was no longer as prosperous as it was in the past. Two figures were running madly in the forest. They were dressed gorgeously, and they looked like students from an advanced academy. They were two women. Behind them, a pitch-black three-eyed evil snake that was 7 to 8 meters long was chasing after them. No, if we continue forward, we'll reach the Star Doe Mountain. That place is even more dangerous. Damn it, I didn't think that there would still be evil soul beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest after the Fifth Soul Beast War hundreds of years ago. One of the women gritted her teeth and was speechless. End of chapter. Chapter 1051. The other girl had a calm expression on her face. Her features were exquisite, and her figure was curvaceous. She looked like she was only 15 or 16 years old, and her eyes were a little drowsy. Right now, the situation was dangerous, but she was eating an orange in her hand. Let's go in then. She stretched lazily. We're out to train anyway. Wow, Juzi, don't you know how dangerous the Star Battle Sacred Mountain is? The girl was speechless. You're from the Star Luo Empire. Don't you know how strong the soul beasts around the Star Battle Sacred Mountain are? It's rumored that the evil soul beasts invaded the Great Star Doe Forest because of the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. However, they didn't dare to step within a few thousand meters of the mountain. What do we do then? The girl called Juzi laughed. Cuckoo, why don't you run a little slower? When that 1,000-year three-eyed evil-scaled snake eats you, it might let me go. You're heartless. Cuckoo glared at Juzi. The two of them looked at the Star Battle Sacred Mountain that reached into the clouds. Hiss, strong winds blew behind them, and demonic aura churned. We'll die if we go forward, and we'll die if we stop. Juzi thought for a moment and said, Then let's go forward. I want to see the secrets of the Star Battle Sacred Mountain up close. According to historical records, the continent's energy tide first appeared 7,000 years ago on the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. After that, it spread across the entire continent. The two of them slowed down. That's easy for you to say. The girl named Cuckoo was speechless. Sigh, I'm really unlucky to have come out with you to train. Before the Fifth Great War of the Soul Beasts, there were actually quite a few Soul Masters who went in to explore the Star Battle Sacred Mountain and were able to come out safely. After the Fifth Great War of the Soul Beasts, this place was called the Forbidden Zone for thousands of years. We'll die if we go in. Cuckoo sighed helplessly. In that case, I'll die first. Juzi looked in front of her and walked straight over. Cuckoo stomped her feet and hurriedly followed. After entering the Star Battle Sacred Mountain, the three-eyed evil snake behind them roared crazily outside. Its blood-red eyes stared at the two of them. It wanted to charge in, but it was afraid of something. This evil soul beast doesn't seem to dare to come in. Cuckoo turned her head to take a look in surprise. The density of the energy in this area of the Star Battle Sacred Mountain seems a little exaggerated. It looks like the 5 energy tides recorded in history are not false. Don't talk. Juzi slowed down her footstep. Hurriedly nodded. But it seemed to be too late. Several gazes locked onto the two of them. It's the aura of 100,000-year soul beast. Juzi and Cuckoo looked at each other. There are at least 10 of them. The two of them exchanged glances and their expressions sank. The Star Battle Sacred Mountain had already become a legendary place on the continent. After the Fifth Great Soul Beast War, no human had dared to step into this place. No matter how few soul beasts there were in the Great Star Doe Forest, no soul master dared to step into this place. That was because there was no way out. In the beginning, because this place was too attractive, no matter how many historical records there were. Even so, they couldn't stop the Sun Moon Empire or the Martial Soul Federation from exploring. But to no avail. Legend had it that there was a strong spiritual magnetic field in this place. Even the Sun Moon Empire's most advanced soul tools would fail. As a result, the Sun Moon Empire's soul engineers would lose most of their fighting strength here. Soul tools have indeed failed, Juzi said softly as she took out an orange from her robes. This orange contained a special soul tool. However, when she used her spiritual power to sense it, she knew that it had completely lost its function. Juzi, we won't die here, right? Kuka said with a trembling voice. There are so many powerful soul beasts that have locked onto us. There was a layer of fog all around them. At this moment, a golden soul beast that resembled a lion suddenly appeared in front of the two of them. Its entire body seemed to be transparent. Under its golden fur were dense scales that resembled dragon scales. It had 4 claws that resembled dragon claws. There were 3 eyes on its head. One of them was a vertical pupil that was blood red. When they saw this soul beast, the two of them stopped in their track. There was a strange look in his golden eyes. Although he didn't say anything, Even though it didn't speak, the two of them seemed to understand what this soul beast was trying to say. Humans, leave this place. The two of them looked at each other. They couldn't recognize this soul beast. However, the aura it exuded was extremely strong. After this soul beast appeared, the auras of the surrounding 100,000-year soul beasts disappeared temporarily. They seemed to be waiting for instructions. Run. Juzi and Kuka looked at each other before they quickly ran towards the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. When it saw this, the golden soul beast that resembled a lion was furious. It snorted coldly. Instantly, countless powerful soul beasts swarmed towards the two of them. How strong were these soul beasts? In the blink of an eye, they had surrounded the two of them. There was a 10-meter-tall steel-backed dragon boar, and a 7-meter-long heavenly note infinitesimal falcon with wings. There was also a 1,000-vine porcupine behind it. The two of them stood back to back. They were a little pale as they looked at the soul beasts around them. At this moment, the Star Battle Sacred Mountain in the distance suddenly shook tremendously. Boom, boom, boom. A huge wave of life energy surged from the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. Instantly, the entire Great Star Doe Forest seemed to be shaking. Countless soul beasts scattered in all directions. They let out fearful roars. Even the soul beasts that surrounded the two of them crawled to the ground and fled in all directions. What's going on? Kuku and Juzi looked at each other before they looked at the Star Battle Sacred Mountain in the distance. They could faintly see a crack in the center of the mountain. Let's go and take a look. The extremely rare and powerful soul beasts around them all dispersed, allowing the two of them to survive for the time being. Not long later, the two of them quickly walked to the side of the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. The closer they got, the more they realized how tall the mountain was. Although it was covered with all kinds of blue-silver grass and tree branches, it was extremely smooth. It's really a wonder. Kuku was astonished. Indeed. Juzi observed her surroundings. She could faintly see some ancient words carved on the mountain peak. These words seemed to be the words used by the Martial Spirit Federation many years ago. I wonder what's written on them? The two of them felt like they were in an archaeological site. There were too many legends about the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. However, these legends had never been proven. Hence, the two of them were very curious. This mountain doesn't seem to be made of stone. Juzi reached out and touched the mountain in the center. This was because there were obvious cracks on the mountain. It looked very strange. However, this touch was all it took. Roar. Roar, roar. At this moment, the furious roars of several soul beasts could be heard. Why are these soul beasts here again? Cuckoo was stunned. Weren't they scared away by the tremors of the Star Battle Sacred Mountain? Why do they seem even angrier? Juzi furrowed her brow. She didn't understand what was going on. Everyone could hear the anger in these soul beasts' roars. At this moment, a helpless voice slowly came from behind the divine mountain. You two little girls have entered the sacred ground in their hearts and profaned the sacred mountain in their hearts. Of course they are angry. When they heard this voice, the two of them were stunned. There are humans here? The two of them turned around at the same time. When they saw who it was, they were stunned. Author's note. 9 chapters. Also, I won't accept the female lead of the original novel. You can go back to sleep. End of chapter. Chapter 1052. What entered their eyes was a man so handsome that even the heavens and earth paled in comparison. He was wearing a simple, plain-colored robe. How should they describe it? It was a little old. It was like the costumes of the Martial Soul Federation from thousands of years ago. It was hard to imagine anyone wearing such clothes. However, it seemed to fit the other party perfectly. Of course, with the other party's good looks, the two of them believed that the man in front of them would fit perfectly no matter what he wore. His eyes were the most eye-catching among his handsome features. His pitch-black eyes had a tinge of gold to them. There was a sense of mystery amidst his nobility. Right now, he was smiling faintly as he looked at the two of them. He exuded a pure and flawless aura that made one want to get close to him. He didn't seem very old, and there were no soul power undulations from his body. With his handsome looks, he looked like he was at most 17 or 18 years old. He couldn't have been more than 20 years old. However, when he spoke, there was a sense of vicissitudes in his eyes. This made the two of them feel that this mysterious and handsome man might be much older than them. Juzi, I've lived for so long, but this is the first time I've seen such a handsome man. Cuckoo tugged at Juzi's elbow excitedly. Oh my God, how can there be such a handsome man in this world? Oh my God, look at his skin. It's better than ours. His voice is also very pleasant. This is too much. But the ancient style of his clothes is so elegant. Juzi was speechless. Juzi wasn't surprised by her best friend's infatuation. On the contrary, she was very normal. This mysterious man in front of her was simply too handsome. However, Juzi was even more alarmed. There's actually someone here? Is this the Star Battle Divine Mountain? It's the most mysterious place in the Douluo continent. How can there be a man here? And he even called us little brats? Is he very big? Juzi scanned the man who had walked out from behind the mountain. She took out a few oranges without batting an eyelid. Hey, handsome, what do you mean by that? Cuckoo was lustful. She waved at the man in front of her and asked, This is the Douluo continent's forbidden zone. How can it be the holy land of these soul beasts? Juzi's heart skipped a beat. 1,000 years ago, during the Fourth Great War of the Soul Beasts, the Star Battle Divine Mountain wasn't a forbidden zone. It seemed to be a holy land. It was also a sacred land for humans. According to historical records, humans and soul beasts had entered an era of peak cultivation due to the 5 energy tides of the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. However, due to the shrinking of the Star Battle Sacred Mountain's energy tide, the 5th Great Soul Beast War was triggered, resulting in a sharp decline in the number of humans and soul beasts. In addition, no one had ever entered the Star Battle God Mountain, so it was also known as the Forbidden Zone for life. At this moment, several powerful soul beasts began to close in on the two of them and surround them. The sense of crisis brought both of them back to their senses. There's no time to explain. The man smiled and said, If you want to live, then follow me. These soul beasts won't let you off for trespassing here. The two of them were taken aback. They looked at each other and hesitated. After the man finished speaking, he turned around and left. He didn't seem to care whether the two of them followed him or not. However, the approaching soul beasts dispelled the hesitation in their hearts. Juzi, let's follow him. He's so handsome. Even if the two of us added together, we wouldn't be able to beat him. He probably wouldn't be interested in us. There's no point in lying to us. Ko whispered. Juzi was speechless. Eh? You can still think of that? Juzi looked at her in astonishment. I thought your IQ would be in the negatives after you became a love-struck fool. Hee, what are you joking about? Don't you know whose disciple we are? Kuku pulled Juzi and walked forward slowly. They were about 5 meters away from the man. The two of them jerked. They felt a gentle aura of life that enveloped them. The powerful soul beasts around them suddenly stopped and stared at the two of them. Their gazes were cold, but they didn't move forward. The two of them looked at each other in astonishment. These soul beasts' killing intent towards us has weakened. Kuku lowered her voice. It's so magical. Don't tell me this man's charm can even subdue soul beasts? Juzi was speechless. Juzi shook her head and said, it should be the aura from his body that made these soul beasts stop. I've heard that some powerful soul beasts will choose to transform into humans and recultivate. This man might be a soul beast in human form. Otherwise, there's no other explanation for these soul beasts to stop. Soul beast in human form? Kuku's eyes widened. You're saying that he's a soul beast? After she finished speaking, Kuku covered her mouth with her hands. God, this is unbelievable, isn't it? The man led them out of the Star Battle God Mountain, and nothing happened. Their hearts, which had been hanging in the air, slowly calmed down. There seems to be an evil aura on the two of you. At this moment, the man in front of them suddenly said, were you attacked by some soul beast? The two of them were stunned. Kuku replied, it was an evil soul beast, a three-eyed evil snake. It was around 1,000 years ago. Evil soul beast? The man pondered for a few seconds. No wonder the soul beasts here are so hostile towards you. He seemed to have some understanding of evil soul beasts. The man pointed to the front. We're out of the Star Battle God Mountain. You can leave now. It was very quiet in front of them in the lush forest. Although it was daytime, it was a little creepy. No, Kuku suddenly said, our flying-type soul tools are broken. It's too dangerous to go out like this. Otherwise, we wouldn't have barged into the Star Battle God Mountain. Since you can take us out of the Star Battle God Mountain, you should be able to take us out of the Great Star Doe Forest, right? Handsome, please help us to the end and bring us out of here. We'll definitely thank you. Juzi frowned slightly. What's Kuku doing? This man might be a soul beast in human form. He's very dangerous to humans. It's best to leave as soon as possible. The man was stunned. A flying-type soul tool, it seemed that after 10,000 years, the dominant forces of this world were already changing. Can you show me your flying-type soul tool? The man suddenly asked. The two of them were stunned. Kuku thought for a moment and said, no problem. As she spoke, Kuku patted the jade-colored bracelet on her wrist. A flying-type soul tool that was about 2 meters long appeared in his hand. It was light blue in color, and had a mechanical feel that Wang Feng was familiar with. It was covered in stripes, and it didn't look very big because of the broken wings and the equipment installed on the body. The lower part of the wings seemed to be unable to release Aling, and there were many creases on the wings. The man looked at the flying-type soul tool. His eyes sparkled. You've never seen it before, right? Kuku said proudly. Have you always been in the Star Battle God Mountain? Have you rarely gone out? It's a pity. If not for the 5th World War of the Soul Beasts, flying-type soul tools would be even more advanced now. The 5th World War of the Soul Beasts. The man looked a little lost. It seemed like this world had changed a lot. The man took the flying-type soul tool, and his eyes flickered with golden light. The flying-type soul tool in front of him seemed to be transparent, and its internal structure was complicated. It quickly disintegrated, separated, and then reassembled in front of his eyes. This level of technology, it's gone from a slave society to an industrial era. It's taken 10,000 years to reach this level. It seems like soul masters on the Douluo continent are still the mainstream. The man thought to himself. He returned the flying-type soul tool to Cuckoo. Chapter 1053. Soul beasts outside normally don't attack humans. You were attacked by an evil soul beast, and its aura tainted your bodies. That's why the soul beast is hostile towards you. The man said plainly, once you kill that evil soul beast, the aura on your bodies will disappear. Of course we know that. Juzi sighed. But how can an evil soul beast be killed so easily? Evil soul beasts were publicly acknowledged as powerful on the continent. Many soul tool technologies were far less effective against evil soul beasts than against normal soul beasts. Normally, a 1,000-year soul beast would need at least 2 to 3 times the cultivation of an evil soul beast in order to defeat it. This was even more so for soul masters. The three-eyed evil snake isn't considered a powerful evil soul beast. The man said, let's wait for a while. Why should we wait? Cuckoo asked curiously. Wait for the three-eyed evil snake to come and find you. The man glanced at the two of them. The three-eyed evil snake left its special venom on your bodies. Once you leave the Star Battle Sacred Mountain, it will come and find you. The two of them were speechless. After hearing this, their pupils shrank. The three-eyed evil snake was a rare evil soul beast. The two of them were led out of the Star Battle Sacred Mountain by the man, but they had forgotten about this. Juzi, let's go! Cuckoo screamed. Juzi didn't do anything. She only stared at the man and asked, what do you want to do? Didn't I say? Of course, I want to kill it, the man said. As he spoke, he looked around. Kill it? Juzi was stunned. She looked at the man who didn't have any soul power undulations. Legend had it that after soul beasts transformed into humans, they had to cultivate like humans, and they would lose their previous cultivation. In the beginning, they were very weak. The three-eyed evil snake isn't simple. Without a rank 40 soul engineer, you might not be able to kill it. Cuckoo also quietened down. She asked curiously, you're not a soul, are you a soul master? What's your martial soul? What's your rank? She wanted to say, aren't you a soul beast that has transformed? However, she didn't want to say it out loud. Although the other party was a soul beast, it had still saved their lives. Even if he had guessed the other party's identity, he couldn't just say it out loud, right? If they did, this soul beast might even attack them. That would be troublesome. The man seemed to have understood something and couldn't help but laugh a few times, but he didn't explain. Let it be a misunderstanding. The man walked around as if he was searching for something. The two of them looked at each other, not knowing what to say for a moment. Juzi, what should we do? When the three-eyed evil snake arrives. Ku sniffed her body and said, I was wondering why there was a weird smell on my body. Ah, it's so annoying. I've used up all the clean water on my body. Why don't I wash off this smell? We should be able to get out safely. I don't think so. The three-eyed evil snake's unique scent should be a special soul skill of an evil soul beast. It's useless to just wash it with water. Juzi shook her head and said, otherwise, he wouldn't have said that we have to kill it to get rid of the three-eyed evil snake's scent. That's true. Ku nodded and stared at the handsome man in front of her. What is he looking for? I don't know. The man was looking for something in the nearby forest. The two of them were worried about the three-eyed evil snake, so they followed the man. Soon, many soul beasts started to gather around the man because of his aura. However, most of them were weak soul beasts that were more than 10 years old. Occasionally, there were soul beasts that were more than 100 years old. After leaving the vicinity of the Star Battle God Mountain, the number of soul beasts in the vicinity gradually decreased. The man's aura was controlled within a few meters of him. He didn't attract any powerful soul beasts. Is he choosing a soul ring? Ku seemed to have thought of something and said softly, I heard that soul beasts need soul rings to level up every 10 ranks, just like us humans. Juzi frowned and didn't say anything. Looking at the colorful soul beasts around him, the man suddenly opened his hand, and a blood-red light appeared in his hand. Just choose one. After all, you'll become a god with me when the time comes. The man muttered softly, as if he was talking to the blood-red light. The blood-red light glowed, and after examining it, it transmitted a message through its mind. Boss, these soul beasts are too weak, aren't they? They haven't even gained sentience, and their bodies are too weak. They don't fit my noble status. You're in a spiritual state now. If you choose a soul beast that's too strong, your soul won't be compatible with its soul, and your body won't be compatible either. This will cause your foundation to be very weak, and you'll have many problems. It'll be very difficult for you to break the rules and become a god. On the other hand, if you choose a younger soul beast that hasn't gained sentience, it'll be easier for your soul to fuse with it. I'll use my life soul contract to slowly make you stronger and evolve. Then, it'll be easier for you to become a god. The man replied through his mind. That makes sense. Alright, let me, Long Xie, test your life soul contract. Boss, let me see what it's like. I, Long Xie, am willing to be your first test subject. The blood-red light replied. After that, it flew in the air and entered the body of one of the soul beasts. This soul beast was very ignorant. It looked like a lone soul beast that had just been born a few years ago, and it was only as tall as a 2 or 3-year-old child. Its entire body was grayish-brown, and it had 2 small claws. It was half-standing. It also had a round belly, and there were golden patterns on its belly. It had 2 canine teeth outside its flat mouth, and its head was made of rock. It was an ordinary soul beast, a crag dragon. Cuckoo and Juzi recognized this soul beast. It was rumored that it had the bloodline of a dragon. In fact, it was a common soul beast. There were many crag dragons in other soul beast forests, let alone the Great Star Doe forest. In the latest edition of the Soul Beast Encyclopedia, this crag dragon was also known as a crag beast. It wasn't very valuable, and there wasn't anything special about it. Very few people would choose a crag dragon as their soul ring. Moreover, it was a cub that had just been born a few years ago. However, it was still very cute. After the man's blood-red light entered the crag dragon, its grayish-brown eyes suddenly turned blood-red. It went from being ignorant to being lazy. Cuckoo and Juzi couldn't understand it. In the Martial Spirit Federation, their understanding and research of soul beasts had been improving over the years. Only the types of soul beasts and their abilities had been recognized. Other than that, there was very little research. It couldn't be helped. The enmity between soul beasts and humans was still there. Even before the Third Soul Beast War, which was the most peaceful period between soul beasts and humans and soul beasts were still killing each other. The only exception was the extreme north. The Martial Spirit Federation forbade all soul beasts from entering that place to kill soul beasts. If they were discovered, they would be severely punished. This was because soul beasts from the extreme north had joined forces with humans in 4 of the 5 soul beast wars. However, the Sun-Moon Empire didn't have such a rule. Because of the 5 energy tides, the soul beast forests in other places far surpassed the first energy tide 7,000 years ago in terms of species, population, and other aspects. Chapter 1054. Even though the number of soul beasts had decreased after the 5th Soul Beast War, there were still more soul beasts than before. What are you doing? Cuckoo and Juzi couldn't help but walk over. What else can I do? The man replied casually, Of course I'm choosing a soul beast. Are you really a soul master? Are you choosing this rock beast as your soul ring? Cuckoo couldn't believe it. Even if your soul power is only at rank 10, you should be able to choose a 5 to 600 year soul beast. Why are you choosing this one? It might have just been born a few years ago. Eh? The man looked at Cuckoo and said in surprise, 500 to 600 years? Isn't that the limit of a soul master's first ring? How can I choose one so casually? Cuckoo and Juzi looked at each other. They saw the strange look in each other's eyes. He might really be a soul beast. Cuckoo lowered her voice and said, he might even be a soul beast that lived a few thousand years ago. Only soul beasts can live that long, Juzi nodded. Although it's cruel, I still have to tell you. Cuckoo thought for a while and said, according to the Martial Spirit Federation's recent research, the limit of a soul master's first ring has been raised to 3,500 years. The first ring's beginner age is 500 years. Those that are slightly better can absorb 1,000-year soul rings, while those with 2,000 years are more outstanding. Those with 3,000 years and above are rarer. Furthermore, this limit is still being broken. According to our understanding of the Martial Spirit Federation's history, after the third energy tide, due to the changes in the energy of heaven and earth, more than half of the continent was affected. It's no longer the same as before. The man was stunned. Oh yes, what's your name? Are you really a soul master? Cuckoo asked. Don't think you can fool around just because you're handsome. You have to be careful when choosing a soul beast. The man sighed and laughed. I'm Wang Feng. I'm considered half a soul master. He didn't expect that the limit of his first soul ring back then was only at the beginner level. After all living beings on the Douluo continent should have been greatly strengthened due to the residual life energy that had seeped out from their bodies, right? Be it soul beasts or humans. And the fifth soul beast world war that they mentioned. Wang Feng suddenly had some interest in this world. For the past 10,000 years, he had spent most of his time comprehending the laws of life. Logically speaking, once one was immersed in it, time would pass too quickly. According to Wang Feng's estimations, even after 10,000 years, he still had not fully comprehended the laws within. He had only comprehended a portion. Relying on this part, Wang Feng was able to control a part of the life energy in his body. The energy residue that was leaking out began to weaken, and it was no longer as crazy as before. However, it was still impossible to absorb this life energy. As for the remaining life laws, Wang Feng estimated that it would take a long time before he could fully comprehend them. After that, Wang Feng was awakened by the sudden battle in the Great Star Do Forest. It was only then that he learned about the existence of evil soul beasts. It just so happened that Wang Feng had completely comprehended the first half of the one qi into 3 pure ones. Therefore, Wang Feng wanted to use the one qi into 3 pure ones to create a clone. This was a doppelganger that Wang Feng had forged with life power from the origin of life and a wisp of his soul power. The 3 manifestations with one breath should have been able to replicate all of Wang Feng's abilities. However, it was a pity. The chaotic green lotus and Pangu Axe martial souls could not be replicated. Only the Angel of Light and Dark's martial soul and abilities could be replicated accurately. Wang Feng's soul power came from the 9 soul rings of the chaotic green lotus. Naturally, it could not be replicated. However, this body that had been tempered by the red lotus karmic fire and the chaotic divine light was completely replicated. However, because it did not have the chaotic green lotus martial soul, it did not have any soul power. It also replicated the nomological seals of the 5 god kings on Wang Feng's body. It could be said that apart from the martial soul and the origin of life, the 3 manifestations with one breath had completely replicated Wang Feng's body. Wang Feng was a little emotional when he realized that the 3 manifestations with one breath could not replicate the chaotic green lotus and Pangu Axe. This doppelganger only had the Angel of Light and Dark martial soul. This was also Wang Feng's motive for coming out this time. As it took too long to comprehend the life laws, it was mainly because of his abilities that limited Wang Feng's comprehension. It wasn't just his intelligence. If his abilities were not up to par, He would not be able to comprehend such high-level laws, no matter how smart he was. The life laws in the origin of life were linked to one's abilities. This was the reason why the 5 God Kings felt that they could not comprehend them. Wang Feng was not a God King. If the God Kings knew that he could only comprehend part of it after spending 10,000 years with his rank 100 soul power, they would be shocked. Therefore, Wang Feng planned to use his doppelganger after comprehending the first half of the book. He would add soul rings to the Angel of Light and Dark Martial Soul and raise its soul power to rank 100. He would even use the Angel of Light and Dark Martial Soul to become the Origin Calamity God King first. Then, he would be able to comprehend the life laws much faster. Wang Feng could control both bodies at the same time if he used his doppelganger with his actual body. The main body in the Star Battle Sacred Mountain could continue to comprehend the life laws. This doppelganger would be used to cultivate the Angel of Light and Dark Martial Soul. However, this body did not have the Chaotic Green Lotus Martial Soul or Pangu Axe Martial Soul. However, Wang Feng's body was also very strong in terms of pure physical strength. Wang Feng's life would not be in any danger. However, the seals of the 5 God Kings were still there. After leaving the Star Battle Sacred Mountain, as the Angel of Light and Dark Martial Soul slowly became stronger, the seals of the God Kings would also slowly be undone. He would be able to recover the strength of 500,000 kilograms with a casual punch. As for now, he only had the characteristics of this body. He did not have much strength, fortunately. Even if this doppelganger died, Wang Feng would not die. Because the main body was still there, he would at most be injured. However, any injury would be healed instantly to the main body. However, this doppelganger still needed to cultivate the anterior secret word and condense a second soul crystal core. Over the past 10,000 years, Wang Feng had spent most of his time comprehending the life laws. He would occasionally find time to comprehend these 2 secret techniques. There was another reason for him to come out now. The anterior secret word gave Wang Feng a premonition that this world was not very good. At the same time, he had not sensed Tang San and the others coming to find him for a long time. This was very strange. This premonition was also one of the reasons why Wang Feng used the 1 Qi into 3 pure ones to cultivate his doppelganger and came out temporarily. 10,000 years was a very long time. Although comprehending the laws passed very quickly, Wang Feng had also awakened several times. However, Wang Feng had also woken up a few times. Some of them were because Rong Rong and the others had come to find him. Some of them were because he had automatically woken up to think about the Douluo continent and the cultivation system of this world. Because of the Angel of Light and Dark Martial Soul, Wang Feng did not want to cultivate according to the previous method. "Are you really a soul master?" Koko's voice interrupted Wang Feng's thoughts. "Of course." Wang Feng smiled and looked at the rock beast. Chapter 1055. He had just injected Long Xie's soul into it. Long Xie's soul had been damaged during the battle against the god of destruction. Because of the soul ring, it had been shattered. It had slowly recovered after Wang Feng had comprehended it in the Rainbow Mountain. After all, it could recover in 10,000 years. However, it was just a soul. Wang Feng didn't want Long Xie to be just a soul. There was still the Qilin Lord of Ice Empress. Even if Wang Feng were to become a god, Long Xie would still be nothing more than a soul in a soul ring. He wouldn't be a god. He would only be immortal. He wanted Long Xie and the Qilin Lord of Ice Empress to become gods. He wanted to extract their souls from his 2 million-year soul rings. He wanted to give them a chance to recultivate with him. He wanted them to become gods. That was why he'd injected Long Xie's soul into this ordinary soul beast. It would be impossible to find Long Xie's original body. Long Xie's true body was one of a kind. Now that it was gone, it was gone. Wang Feng could inject Long Xie's soul into different soul beasts without being destroyed. This was part of the law of life that Wang Feng had comprehended. The laws in the source of life were extremely powerful, and this was merely the most basic application of the law of life. It was equivalent to a god's method. It was difficult to use more complicated methods in this world. Long Xie was a soul beast. He was used to the body of a soul beast. Wang Feng could actually inject Long Xie's soul into a human's body. However, Long Xie didn't want to. He thought of himself as a soul beast. Even if he wanted to recultivate, he wanted to recultivate in the body of a soul beast. This is your first soul ring. Does that mean your soul power is at rank 10? Koku was speechless. How did you kill the three-eyed evil snake? Our soul power is much higher than yours. Even so, we can't defeat it. Also, you've absorbed the soul ring of this Stoneclaw beast, so your upper limit is destined to be too low. Your fighting strength is weak. Where's your martial soul? With that, Ko looked at Wang Feng suspiciously. Although this rock beast is cute, it's really weak. Zhu Zi also looked at him suspiciously. Ha ha! I told you, I'm half a soul master. Wang Feng laughed. Then what's the other half? Zhu Zi asked. Wang Feng didn't answer. At this time, the rock beast roared twice at Ku. Ku jumped in fright. She felt that this crag dragon's roar actually carried a powerful aura. At this moment, Wang Feng looked at the rock dragon. Long Xie's soul was still fusing with it, so he couldn't speak yet. Are you ready? Wang Feng looked at Long Xie. The rock dragon nodded. Zhu Zi and Ku looked at each other. They didn't know what this mysterious man was up to. In the next moment, their eyes slowly widened. Rays of light were emitted from Wang Feng's fingertip as an ancient pattern began to appear on his fingertip. An image formed by soul power appeared beneath Wang Feng's feet, and it contained Long Xie's new body. Looking at this ancient energy pattern, the two of them felt as if they had seen a new continent. Their eyes were filled with amazement. What is this? Ko couldn't help but ask. I don't know. It seems to be some sort of ancient ritual. Could it be that he wanted to use this method to take away the soul beast's life? You want to absorb his soul ring? Zhu Zi was astonished. Because of the energy tide, the Martial Spirit Federation has been focusing on soul masters' cultivation since ancient times. They rarely develop soul tools. However, because of the energy tide, the Martial Spirit Federation's soul masters were very powerful before the Fifth Soul Beast War. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to crush the Sun Moon Empire's soul masters. However, I've never seen such a method of absorbing a soul ring. What a powerful life aura! In this ancient pattern, the two of them saw the soul beast's soul ring appear. The pure white soul ring indicated that the soul beast possessed by Long Xie was very young. At the same time, a drop of bright blood appeared in Wang Feng's hand. This drop of blood was more dazzling than the sun. Life-soul contract. Wang Feng shouted as he dripped the drop of blood into Long Xie's body. Instantly, the white soul ring shone brightly. In this ancient pattern that was filled with life aura, this drop of blood fused with Long Xie's body, causing a huge change. His body was growing taller. He was 20 centimeters taller now. His canine teeth grew longer, and the patterns on his stomach became brighter and more complex. His aura became stronger. The pure white soul ring also became gentler. It had a whitish-yellow hue to it. At the same time, this soul ring flew from Long Xie's body and landed on Wang Feng's body. Instantly, Wang Feng's martial soul appeared. Koku and Zhu Zi opened their eyes wide, as if they were witnessing something unbelievable. They also felt like they were witnessing an epic. It was the mysterious angel martial soul. There were 14 pairs of wings. Half of them were black, while the other half were golden. It was expressionless, as if it represented the end of life, the beginning of calamity. A majestic and ancient aura rose from this martial soul. It was an aura that couldn't be described with words. At this moment, the two of them knew. This mysterious man wasn't a soul beast. Soul beasts couldn't possess such a martial soul. The angel martial spirit had always been one of the most mysterious martial spirits on the continent. This 14-winged angel was unbelievable. The two of them were so shocked that they couldn't remember anything. They had to admit that this mysterious man's angel martial soul was too shocking. It was impossible to describe this martial soul in terms of its grade. Speaking of which, this was the first time Wang Feng had used his dark angel martial soul after it evolved into his light and dark angel martial soul. Previously, Wang Feng had only used the power of the blood gold patterns. He didn't reveal his light and dark angel martial soul. Now that he had added his first soul ring, he had to reveal it. However, the two of them weren't just shocked. As this white soul ring gathered around Wang Feng's angel of light and dark, powerful energy undulations were emitted from his martial soul. But what shocked the two of them the most was, the crag dragon didn't die. It walked to Wang Feng's side and roared intimately. The soul beast didn't die? Koku was astonished. How is that possible? After absorbing the soul ring, how can the soul beast not die? This is impossible. Even if those 100,000-year soul beasts sacrificed themselves, they would still die. As there had been 5 great soul beast wars, the Federation's records stated that the sacrifice of 100,000-year soul beasts was no longer a rumor. It had happened before. It was just that there weren't many of them. This has nothing to do with the sacrifice. Zhu Zi's eyes sparkled. Right now, her gaze wasn't as lazy as before. Instead, it was filled with wisdom. This might be a brand new cultivation system. The Sun-Moon Empire doesn't know about it, and the Martial Spirit Federation has never seen it before. Zhu Zi muttered. The scene in front of them made their worldview change drastically. In this era where soul tools were starting to run rampant, the cultivation system of soul masters was gradually falling behind. However, it wouldn't disappear. No matter how strong a soul tool was, it required a lot of soul power to support it. Therefore, the cultivation system of soul masters wouldn't be cut off. The reason why it fell behind was because the conflict with soul beasts was getting more intense, and the difficulty of obtaining soul rings was increasing. The increase in difficulty wasn't just because there were fewer soul beasts, but also because soul beasts were getting stronger. Chapter 1056. However, the scene in front of them. The soul ring was absorbed by this human, but the soul beast didn't die. Instead, it became even stronger. This really subverted the two's concept of cultivation. Rank 11 soul power undulations emanated from this mysterious man's body, clearly telling them that everything in front of them was real. After a while, the ancient life diagram disappeared. Wang Feng touched the crag dragon's head. On the rock dragon's head, there was a smooth rock surface, like the back of its head, with a layer of rock behind it. It was very comfortable to touch. Boss, your life soul contract is quite good. After absorbing the soul ring, Long Xie transmitted his voice to Huoyuhao. While preserving the soul beast's life and accepting the soul master's blood, you can form a soul contract with me. My soul ring will be yours. I can absorb your essence, blood, and soul power, and I can become stronger through cultivation. I can mutate and increase the age of my soul ring. You've really changed the cultivation laws of the Douluo continent. Even the gods might not be able to create such a cultivation law. Wang Feng laughed and said, This life-soul contract was created based on the laws of life that I comprehended. I changed it according to the cultivation laws of the Douluo continent. There are still many problems and rules in the initial experiment. We can slowly improve it in the future. Damn, isn't Long Xie the first soul beast created by this cultivation law? Long Xie laughed. Does this mean I can cultivate to 1,000,000 years? I don't think it'll be a short time. After all, you're here. This time, I'll cultivate to 1,000,000 years with you. We can beat the gods then, right? Wang Feng nodded. It should be possible after we complete this life-soul contract. Yes, this life-soul contract was created after Wang Feng comprehended the laws of life. After that, he deduced and changed it to form a new cultivation method for soul masters. He communicated with the soul beast through his soul. The soul master's blood would be used to stimulate the soul beast's soul ring. After both parties agreed, they would form a life-soul contract. The soul beast would give its soul ring to the soul master to obtain powerful soul skills and soul power. The soul master would give part of his soul and essence blood to the soul beast. This would allow the soul beast to become intelligent and mutate to a certain extent. Under the soul contract, the soul beast that absorbed part of the soul master's soul would mutate to a certain extent. It wouldn't die. It would increase the growth of a soul beast to a certain extent, and it could also cultivate on its own. It could also accompany a soul master in battle, making battles even more diverse. This was something Wang Feng had derived from the laws of life. Only Wang Feng, who had comprehended the law of life, was qualified to change it. Therefore, this was also a kind of fixed life soul contract. Even a god could not change this kind of rule, unless the other party had comprehended the laws of life that surpassed the laws Wang Feng had comprehended from the source of life. However, as the first test subject, Long Xie was a bit special. There were still many special rules and problems in the soul contract that Wang Feng needed to perfect. However, at the very least, Wang Feng had given the Douluo continent a brand new cultivation method. This was another reason why Wang Feng had used this clone to cultivate. Wang Feng turned around and looked at the two people who were still in a daze. He smiled faintly. In the future, he would definitely perfect the life-soul contract and develop it. Eventually, he would slowly change the continent. Soul Renderer. Wang Feng redefined the definition of a soul master. At this moment, a fishy smell suddenly came from afar. The rustling of the trees reached their ears. The three-eyed evil snake seemed to have arrived. In the distance, 3 pairs of eyes shone with blood-red and evil light. Its body, which was several meters long, seemed to be made of fried dough twists. It was in a spiral shape and looked extremely hard. Its entire body was pitch black. It's an evil soul beast. Koku and Juzi were shocked. It was obvious that they regretted not running away during that period of time. Even though this mysterious man seemed to have used a brand new cultivation method to absorb the soul ring, they were still shocked. This brought great shock to the two of them, but their lives were in danger now, so no matter how shocked they were, it was useless. Wang Feng patted Long Xie's head. Even though this was only the body of an ordinary soul beast, with his essence blood and spiritual power, even the most ordinary soul beast would be greatly transformed. Long Xie, do you have anything you want to say before you fight in your first battle as a newborn? Wang Feng asked. Are you very excited? Are you very confident? Are you looking forward to it? A little, my ass. Long Xie looked at the three-eyed evil snake. In the past, I could spit hundreds of thousands of trash like this to death. However, boss, this evil soul beast seems a little strange. The energy in its body is very strange. We'll know when we kill it. Wang Feng was speechless. Wang Feng brought Long Xie in front of Kuku and Juzi. Are you a soul master? Kuku stuttered. Why isn't this soul beast dead? Do you want to defeat this three-eyed evil snake? Are you really a human? The first few questions were quite normal. However, the last one, Wang Feng smiled. Increasing his soul power as an angel of light and dark wasn't as easy as compressing his soul power. In fact, it was even more difficult. The reason was simple. He had 7 purple origin runes. The increase in his soul power was linked to these 7 purple origin runes. These 7 purple origin runes were the source of the Angel of Light and Dark's martial soul. They were also the 7 origin powers of the Tribulation Origin God King. Wang Feng had to fill these 7 purple origin runes with soul power before he could use them. The reason why he couldn't add soul rings to the Angel of Light and Dark was because these 7 purple origin runes had to be fully activated before he could add soul rings. After the battle, Wang Feng only had 6 purple origin runes. The last one was activated after it was sealed. The Tribulation Origin God King's power wasn't easy to inherit. The amount of soul power required to fill these 7 purple essences with soul power was an astronomical figure. This was the key to increasing one's soul power. If he used the soul power of a normal soul master, he might not be able to fill up these 7 purple origins even if he cultivated to rank 100. After all, these were the 7 origin powers of the Tribulation Origin God King. Therefore, every time Wang Feng's soul force increased in rank, he needed to accumulate a large amount of soul force and refine it. Without the meteoric tear would only be in his body after it fused with his life origin. Without fully comprehending the laws of life, he wouldn't be able to absorb the life energy. As a result, Wang Feng's soul force would increase even more slowly. Fortunately, in this world, because he had comprehended the law of life, some of the residual energy had leaked out, making this world extremely rich in energy. Coupled with the special nature of his body, his cultivation speed would be greatly increased, so it would not be too difficult. Of course, I'm a human. Wang Feng laughed. However, I'm only half a soul master. To be precise, I'm a soul contract master. His name is Long Xie. He's my first soul contract beast. Let's go. Let's show the world our strength. As he spoke, Wang Feng led the spirited Long Xie towards the 3-eyed evil snake. P.S. 5 chapters today, more tomorrow. Please vote for me at the beginning of the month. Thanks. Chapter 1057. In fact, Wang Feng could still feel Long Xie's happiness. After all, Long Xie was just a spirit in his soul ring. He was like a spirit. He didn't really feel like he was living in this world. It wasn't difficult for Wang Feng to let him recultivate now. Moreover, with his previous experience, if Wang Feng wanted to cultivate to level 100, it wouldn't take too long. With the help of his life soul contract, it wasn't difficult for Wang Feng to help Long Xie become a million-year soul beast again. Furthermore, this kind of soul beast that had followed him step by step and cultivated to become a million-year soul beast would definitely be much stronger than before. Cuckoo and Juzi charged towards the 3-eyed evil snake with their beasts. Juzi, that crag dragon only has less than 10 years of cultivation, right? Cuckoo poked Juzi beside her and whispered, "Am I seeing things? Is he not from the Douluo continent? Could they be from another continent like the Sun-Moon Empire? I've never heard of a soul contract master, not to mention this kind of strange cultivation method. Is it really useful?" Both of them had too many questions and were shocked. The scene in front of them was even more puzzling. A rank 10 soul master and a 10-year soul beast wanted to defeat a 3-eyed evil snake? They didn't even dare to brag to others. I don't know, Juzi hesitated for a moment. Her mind was a little confused. Everything that had happened was too unbelievable. However, they would find it even more unbelievable in the upcoming battle. The 3-eyed demon snake flicked its scarlet forked tongue as it twisted its enormous body like a fried dough twist. It hissed in all directions as it stared at the 2 little creatures not far from it. Its eyes exuded a pure and evil murderous intent. The oval pupils in its vertical pupils shrunk and exuded a frightening light. Wang Feng stared at the 3-eyed evil snake. This 3-eyed evil snake didn't have 1,000 years of cultivation. It was only close. The aura of the evil soul beast made Wang Feng frown. Although it hadn't come out for many years, it had woken up a few times. Wang Feng knew that the world had changed. Wang Feng knew that a few powerful evil soul beasts had invaded the Rainbow Mountains territory. However, as Long Xie had said, these evil soul beasts were a little strange. The energy in their bodies, Long Xie, go. Wang Feng growled. With that, Long Xie twisted his new body and charged at the three-eyed evil snake. Since it was a brand new body, it was a good opportunity for Long Xie to get used to it. Long Xie's new body was only about 60 centimeters tall, and it had grown a lot after absorbing Wang Feng's blood essence and soul power when he had just formed the life contract with Wang Feng. Compared to the 7 to 8 meter long three-eyed evil snake in front of him, it was really small. However, the evil dragon was still the evil dragon. It was still a million-year soul beast with the purest draconic aura. As the purest evil thought of the dragon god at the birth of the dragon god, it had gained sentience after countless years, and it was also a pure dragon's soul. It was not something that a three-eyed evil snake could compare to. Although Long Xie was weak now, but Long Xie roared at the three-eyed evil snake. However, because of his body, this roar turned into the sound of oh, so, the three-eyed evil dragon was stunned. The three-eyed evil snake also staggered. It didn't have high intelligence, and it only had an instinctive desire to kill. However, it was stunned by Long Xie's draconic aura, and its strength was greatly reduced. As a 10-year stone dragon, it didn't have any abilities. However, after Long Xie's soul merged with the stone dragon's consciousness, the stone dragon gained a powerful innate soul skill. Draconic aura. Dragons that were weaker than Long Xie could only use 90% of their strength against him. As they grew stronger, this soul skill would also be improved. Once Long Xie reached the million-year level, any dragon would not be able to use their strength against him, even if they were of the same level. This was an ability that came from his powerful soul. 10,000 years ago there was only one. The three-eyed evil snake was stunned for a moment, but it quickly reacted. Although it was afraid, the soul beast in front of it was really weak. Its cultivation was like heaven and earth compared to it. Without hesitation, it swung its twisted tail at Long Xie. The three-eyed evil snake's tail was swollen, and it was very heavy and destructive. Soul beasts that were stronger than it would be smashed to pieces if they were hit. Humph! Long Xie smiled proudly and leaped into the air, dodging the tail swing. Unfortunately, he had just gotten used to this body. Even Long Xie, who was still jumping in the air, was thrown off balance by the powerful wind generated by the tail. Its tail is the strongest part. Don't get hit. Wang Feng's voice sounded at this moment. The three-eyed evil snake's body is very hard because it's twisted into a bundle. This stone dragon has absorbed my essence blood, and it should have a powerful soul skill under our life contract. Life contracts are equal. I've obtained a new soul skill, and you've obtained a new one. Feel it for yourself. Long Xie was stunned, and he quickly sensed his new body. At the same time, Wang Feng's angel of light and dark appeared and attached to his body. Suddenly, Wang Feng's body shone with black and gold colors. The 7 purple origins on his body shone faintly. At the same time, there were 5 different ancient patterns on Wang Feng's body. These 5 patterns were the God King's seal of 5 great laws. Back in the 5-colored mountain, the seal of 5 great laws originated from the 5-colored mountain. The God King's seal of 5 great laws didn't just stop the life origin energy from leaking out, it also temporarily sealed Wang Feng's strength. The 3 pure ones couldn't replicate martial souls. However, it could replicate Wang Feng's powerful rank 100 body perfectly. Because the God King's seal of 5 great laws had been replicated, the strength of Wang Feng's body was temporarily suppressed. Fortunately, Wang Feng had left the 5-colored mountain. The God King's seal of 5-colored mountain had lost its source. Coupled with the increase in soul power of the Angel of Light and Dark, it would slowly dissipate. Furthermore, Wang Feng's secret word made it difficult for his body to be severely damaged. In 10,000 years, Wang Feng did not spend much time on the esoteric character, but he had cultivated it to a high level. Even if his heart was destroyed, he would be able to recover quickly, let alone rebirth from a drop of blood. He was almost immortal. Although he was recultivating, he couldn't really start from scratch. Although his strength had been sealed, he had regained some of his strength after obtaining the Angel of Light and Dark's first soul ring. Chapter 1058. With the Angel of Light and Dark in his body, Wang Feng's aura had reached its peak. However, his first soul ring was too weak, and his soul power rank was too low. None of the 7 purple origin patterns were filled. He couldn't use them for now. He could only use his martial soul. However, Wang Feng knew that Long Xie's first soul ring would become 100-year, 1,000-year, 10,000-year, 100,000-year, 100,000-year. The ability to upgrade soul rings was one of the characteristics of life soul contracts. When that happened, the age of soul rings wouldn't be determined by soul masters anymore. Instead, the most important thing would be how to nurture the strength of the soul beast that formed the life soul contract, as well as how to increase one's own strength. This was because soul rings were directly related to a soul beast's strength. After hearing Wang Feng's words, Long Xie started to think about this body. As a former million-year soul beast, Long Xie was naturally very smart. In the blink of an eye, Long Xie came to a realization. At the same time, Wang Feng's first soul ring lit up. A wave of soul power was released from Long Xie's body. At the same time, the three-eyed evil snake roared and swung its tail again. At this moment, Long Xie clasped its palms together in midair. Like a top, it started to spin rapidly in midair. Soul skill, flying rock spiral. As it spun, Long Xie's body glowed brighter and brighter. The moment the hammer-like tail struck Long Xie's body trembled. When the hammer smashed into it, Long Xie, who had turned into a top, nimbly dodged it. As it spun in midair, it quickly landed on the ground. The moment it landed on the ground, Long Xie disappeared. Following this, the ground where the three-eyed evil snake was started to tremble. As it trembled, cracks started to appear on the ground. Like mud, the ground became very soft. The three-eyed evil snake was caught off guard. It sank into the cracks, and its body became stiff for a short while. "Boss, kill it!" Whoosh! Long Xie, who had turned into a top, flew out from the ground again. He said proudly, "I have good eyesight. This crag dragon's body is quite strong." Although the flying rock spiral was very weak, it was able to temporarily control a soul beast that was dozens of times larger than him. "However, I'm not strong enough to kill it. I'll leave it to you, boss." In the distance, Wang Feng quickly flew over. He looked at the three-eyed evil snake that was embedded in the cracks in the ground, as if it was stuck in a quagmire. It was clear that Long Xie's soul skill had caused the ground to shift, and at the same time, it had changed part of the terrain to become extremely soft soil. The three-eyed evil snake was trapped within. At this moment, it was still struggling madly in the cracked ground. Wang Feng smiled. The 14 pairs of wings on Wang Feng's back caused him to emit a divine might. There were 7 indistinct purple-veined patterns on his body, making him look like a god. If it weren't for the fact that his soul power fluctuations weren't strong, those who didn't know would think that he was a god. With the help of soul beasts, the battle became much easier. Of course, Long Xie and Wang Feng were special, so Long Xie was able to temporarily control the three-eyed evil snake with only 10 years of cultivation. His white soul ring lit up, and Wang Feng clenched his fist. At this moment, under the possession of the Angels of Light and Dark martial soul, even if he couldn't use the power of the 7 purple origins, he would still be able to use the power of the 7 purple origins. Could also give Wang Feng a great boost. This kind of martial soul didn't just have cool special effects. He quickly came in front of the three-eyed evil snake, and his white soul ring had a tinge of pale yellow. The three-eyed evil snake roared fiercely at Wang Feng, and its vertical eyes shone with an intense black light. There was a fishy smell in its mouth. The black light was a rare spiritual attack. The stench was a physical attack with corrosive properties. It was the final struggle of an evil soul beast. The aura that this human in front of it exuded struck fear in its heart. As a light and dark angel, it carried the strength of the tribulation origin God King. A martial soul of this level couldn't be judged by its rank. In this world, no martial soul could compare to the mutated light and dark angel. Not even 10,000 years ago could compare to it. It was impossible for a three-eyed evil snake to launch a spiritual attack on Wang Feng. When the black light entered Wang Feng's eyes, it was like a stone that had fallen into the sea. It didn't cause any ripples. Soul skill. Rock Dragon Strike. As it was only a 10-year soul ring, the soul skill itself wasn't strong, and it was only a passive soul skill. However, Wang Fengxin's strength was greatly boosted after he was possessed by the light and dark angel. It unleashed a terrifying attack. Wang Feng passed through the fishy smell coming from the three-eyed evil snake, and his fist landed on the three-eyed evil snake's body. In an instant, countless rock walls covered the three-eyed evil snake's body. In just a few seconds, the 7-meter-long three-eyed evil snake was petrified. It was an ordinary punch, and the rock dragon strike only had the effect of petrification. It didn't have any boost. This was just Wang Feng's strength after being possessed by the Angel of Light and Dark Martial Soul after being sealed by the Divine King. It's still a little too strong. Wang Feng thought for a moment, and didn't hold back. If his evil dragon transformation were to become more powerful, this soul skill would also be greatly enhanced, and its effects would be greatly amplified. When that happened, the soul skill would become even stronger. With Wang Feng's current soul power, his soul power poured out, and a huge amount of energy raged inside the petrified three-eyed mechanical god's body. Boom! In an instant, the three-eyed evil snake was crushed. An intense black light burst out from the three-eyed evil snake's body and spiraled. However, the strange thing was that this evil soul beast didn't have a soul ring. Evil soul beasts were the products of the collision between two continents. They seemed to have mutated after absorbing the energy of heaven and earth. Not only were these evil soul beasts extremely powerful, but they also had no soul rings after they died. They would only release a special dark energy. The dark energy was like a fog and it filled the air. Boss, look. These evil soul beasts are indeed strange. This dark energy doesn't belong to this world. They don't have soul rings either. Long Xie walked to Wang Feng's side. This means that their cultivation methods have been changed by this dark energy. Wang Feng frowned slightly. With a suction force from his palm, a powerful aura emanated from his body and sucked the dark energy into his hand. It was different from dark-type soul beast. This dark energy was violent, bloodthirsty, and filled with all kinds of negative auras. It could erode the consciousness of soul beast. Evil soul beasts were the last thing that soul masters wanted to face. This was because these evil soul beasts were very strong, but they were worthless after they died. Chapter 1059. Without a soul ring, they couldn't drop any soul bones. Evil soul beasts weren't purely dark-type soul beasts. There was a fundamental difference between the two. Because they were worthless, there was no point in killing them. After pondering for a moment, Wang Feng's 7 purple origins flashed. The various auras in this ball of dark energy were quickly absorbed by one of the purple origins. Gradually, this ball of dark energy changed to its original gray color. It was similar to a soul ring. Boss, these evil soul beasts might have been corroded by a special kind of energy. Long Xie exclaimed. Look, this is what their soul rings look like after they've been corroded. No wonder they've lost their spiritual consciousness. At this moment, a streak of gray light surged into Long Xie's body. Instantly, Long Xie's aura became stronger. Wang Feng's white soul rings also turned a little yellow. The life-soul contract granted a soul beast great growth potential. Apart from the ability to cultivate, this growth potential was also manifested in the ability to grow. Not only did soul beasts have the potential to become stronger after fighting, but the degree of fighting was different. The potential that was stimulated was also different. After the potential was stimulated, the soul beast would naturally become stronger. For dead soul beasts like this, their soul power couldn't be absorbed because of their different element. Of course, some special soul beasts could be excluded. However, defeating these soul beasts could increase one's strength. Normally, it would take a very long time for a soul beast to cultivate from a 10-year cultivation to a 100-year cultivation. However, if they formed a life-soul contract with a soul master, they would be given greater potential for growth. Through fighting, their potential would be stimulated. Coupled with the soul master's cultivation speed, this time would be greatly reduced. At the same time, the soul beast's fighting strength would be greatly increased because of the large number of battles it had to fight. In the future, once life-soul contracts were popularized, soul beasts would definitely take the initiative to find soul masters they liked and form life-soul contracts with them. This would greatly reduce the time it took to cultivate. Furthermore, this growth was visible to the naked eye. For example, when Long Xie fought this three-eyed evil snake, it cooperated well with its master. Both parties' strengths would be greatly increased. In just one battle, Long Xie's cultivation had increased from 10 years to dozens of years. Of course, this was partly because the gray energy of the three-eyed evil snake had been absorbed after it died. If it was the soul ring of a normal soul beast, he probably wouldn't be able to absorb it. However, the three-eyed evil snake wasn't a normal soul beast. It was an evil soul beast, and it couldn't absorb the dark energy. Fortunately, Wang Feng's purple origin absorbed the special dark energy inside. However, because it was corroded, it couldn't be condensed into a soul ring. Instead, it became soul power that could be absorbed. Unfortunately, he only managed to absorb a little bit of it before it quickly dissipated into the world. Wang Feng sighed. These evil soul beasts had been corroded by this special dark energy, and their souls were basically damaged. Only their instincts were still intact. Even the life-soul contract couldn't awaken their intelligence. Death might be the best choice, but it was also a form of release. Wang Feng didn't know what had happened to the evil soul beasts. Wang Feng suddenly realized that he might be able to turn these evil soul beasts into experience babies for the soul beast. This was because Long Xie wouldn't be able to absorb the soul rings of normal soul beasts even after they were killed. This was the rule of the life-soul contract. This was done in order to prevent soul masters from killing other soul beasts in order to increase the strength of their soul beasts after they had signed a life contract with them. This was done in order to prevent soul masters from using this method to increase the strength of their soul beasts. Therefore, after signing the life-soul contract, one couldn't absorb the soul power and soul rings of other soul beasts after killing them. It wouldn't help at all. If one tried to forcefully absorb the soul rings, it would cause different types of soul power, and one's soul would go berserk. At the same time, it would violate the life-soul contract. Even if one succeeded in absorbing the soul rings, the life-soul contract would be cancelled, and the soul master wouldn't be able to sign a life-soul contract with the soul beast. This put an end to killing soul beasts to increase the strength of one's soul. However, these evil soul beasts didn't have soul rings. The special energy that they released could be purified, but the negative aura could be absorbed. This absorption was equivalent to inheriting a part of the soul beast's strength. Evil soul beasts were still rampaging on the continent, and they had never stopped. Their reproductive abilities were stronger than normal soul beasts. Because they were corroded by this special dark energy, their fighting strength was far greater than other soul beasts. Phew, it's been a long time since I've enjoyed the thrill of increasing my strength. Long Xie smacked his lips. It seems like it feels good to recultivate. Wang Feng stared at the three-eyed evil snake and felt a little emotional. This world had changed a lot. Apart from the overall increase in strength, these special evil soul beasts had also been born. Generally speaking, these creatures violated the rules of the Douluo world. The god realm must have noticed. However, they didn't react at all. This meant that the god realm had lost some of its surveillance over the Douluo continent. Wang Feng guessed that this world might have become stronger, but it might have attracted some special beings to invade this continent unknowingly. Even the god realm had been fooled. This means that I came out just in time, however, because this was the first time he had signed a life-soul contract with Long Xie. He had to continue to study the specific rules and whether the situation would occur. He had to continue experimenting or analyzing it. After the second transformation, Long Xie didn't grow taller, but his rock-like skin was glowing. He seemed to be nurturing powerful energy. When the time came, he would undergo another great transformation. If nothing went wrong, he would probably undergo his first evolution in 100 or 1,000 years. Wang Feng turned around with Long Xie and glanced at Cuckoo and Juzi. The two of them stood rooted to the ground with blank expressions on their faces. Were they dreaming? Is this battle so simple? That soul beast didn't die, and it can even fight the three-eyed evil snake? Would you believe that a 10-year-old crag dragon would dare to fight against a 1,000-year-old three-eyed evil snake? And it can even control it? What the hell? How is this possible? What the hell was that rock stone beast? And that mysterious man, who only has rank 11 soul power, was able to destroy the three-eyed evil snake with one strike after he was possessed by his martial soul? What kind of strength is this? How can a 10-year soul skill be so strong? The only possibility was that his opponent's martial spirit was extremely powerful. That was why he could shatter the three-eyed evil snake with a single punch. Chapter 1060. However, what was most unbelievable was that this method of fighting alongside a soul beast made it so easy for them to win. Furthermore, they could clearly feel that the crag dragon had become stronger after they won the battle. Yes, it had clearly become stronger. A brand new method of cultivation and combat was presented before the two of them. Although it was just a preliminary demonstration, it was still very shocking. It was different from soul tools. Ao ao! Long Xie roared at them disdainfully. The three-eyed evil snake's aura on your bodies has disappeared. Wang Feng said, leave the Great Star Do Forest while it's still early. As long as you're careful, you won't be attacked by evil soul beasts. Cuckoo and Juzi looked at each other. They regained their senses. They knew that this mysterious man in front of them was too magical. Such a novel cultivation and fighting method was definitely unprecedented. They were very curious. A soul contract master. What's that? Coco wanted to say something. She wanted to invite him out of the Great Star Do Forest. However, Juzi pulled her back. Since that's the case, thank you. Juzi quickly said, we are students from the Sun Moon Empire's Imperial Academy. If you can come to the Sun Moon Empire, you can look for us. We will definitely thank you. Sun Moon Empire. Wang Feng was stunned for a moment before he nodded slowly. Aya Juzi, why are you pulling me back? Cuckoo hurriedly said, Wang Feng, why don't you come out of the Great Star Do Forest with us? Have you been here for a very long time? Wang Feng shook his head and said, there's no need for that. I still have some things to do in the Great Star Do Forest. I'm not in a hurry to leave. The Sun Moon Empire. I see. Cuckoo was a little disappointed. She suddenly took out a map and passed it to Wang Feng. Here, this is the latest version of the world map. The location of the Sun Moon Empire's Imperial Academy is on it. If you want to find us, don't get lost. It will appear if you inject your soul power. This world map was actually very small. It was a special soul tool. It was made of a special material. It was a special kind of curtain. Wang Feng used his spiritual power to analyze it. There were many complicated and intricate lines on this curtain. It was a white cloth on the surface. However, many diagrams and words would appear on it if he injected his soul power. This is a world map soul tool. It can be folded easily. As long as you infuse your soul power into one of them, the map of that area will be enlarged. There are also many routes, which are very precious. Just treat it as a small reward for saving us. After Juzi explained, she stared at Wang Feng for a while before leaving with Cuckoo. Wang Feng looked at the backs of the two people. His eyes flickered as he looked at the map in his hand. Based on Wang Feng's understanding of the Douluo continent from 10,000 years ago, this map of the Douluo continent in front of him was much larger than it had been 10,000 years ago. There were still many unknown areas on the map. The current Martial Spirit Federation was divided into 3 major districts: the Star Luo District, the Heaven Do District, and the Federation Main District. The 3 political regions formed a triangle, and the enormous Great Star Do Forest was in the center of the 3 political regions, and it covered an extremely vast area. After 5 energy tides and 5 soul master battles, it was even larger than the 3 major political regions combined. After the northernmost land of the north merged with another northern glacier, it also became extremely large. However, it was still slightly inferior to the Great Star Do Forest. However, the northernmost region on the map was a golden symbol that represented friendliness. The Great Star Do Forest was a neutral white symbol. Apart from that, there was another continent that had collided with another continent to the west. Incomparably black map markings appeared where the 2 continents intersected. At the same time, there were different levels of black markings in the soul beast forests of the 3 major districts. These black markings represented the forests where evil soul beasts live. The largest evil demon forest was close to the Sun-Moon Empire, but it extended all the way to the 3 major districts. The black markings represented the human race's enemy. Apart from that, there were many gray areas on the map. They represented the unknown areas where the 2 continents had collided. Humans had yet to explore these areas. After looking at it for a while, Wang Feng put the world map away. He was indeed going to stay in the Great Star Do Forest for a few days. On one hand, he was going to clean up the evil soul beasts here. On the other hand, he was going to increase Long Xie's strength. As he watched the 2 of them disappear, Wang Fengxin suddenly had a special feeling about this world. "Aya, Juzi, why did you let us go so quickly?" Cuckoo couldn't help but complain along the way. "This Wang Feng is so mysterious. Wouldn't it be great to bring him to the Sun-Moon Empire? Also, don't you think that mysterious cultivation method is very interesting? I'm sure that even the Soul Masters in the Martial Spirit Federation don't have such a unique cultivation method. And he's so strong. Aren't you curious? Especially his martial soul. It's an angel martial soul. And it's not an ordinary angel martial soul. Furthermore, he's just too handsome." Cuckoo was infatuated again. Juzi was speechless as she looked at Cuckoo. "I think the last sentence is the main reason, right? This Wang Feng gives me a very dangerous feeling. Furthermore, we don't know where he came from, and his abilities are mysterious. Don't be infatuated with him. Don't invite a wolf into the house. Forget it. If he was really a wolf, he would have eaten us earlier." Cuckoo shook her head. "What do you know? This is called casting a long line to catch a big fish." Juzi said, "Think about it. We met him when we entered the Star Do Sacred Mountain, and he saved us. Then, he showed off his abilities from the 3-eyed evil snake and saved us. His words and actions reveal that he doesn't know anything about this world. His mysterious cultivation method, the fact that there aren't any dead soul beasts, and his abilities are very strong. Step by step, we're getting more and more curious. I feel that this is a trap." "That makes sense, but he's just too handsome. I can't help it." Several days later, Wang Feng cultivated in the Great Star Do Forest. His soul power rank increased rapidly. To Wang Feng, the only use of his soul power rank was to fill up his 7 purple origin patterns. When he filled up one of them, he would be able to unleash a special ability. Wang Feng wasn't sure what it was exactly. However, there should be other abilities besides the most basic amplification. At the same time, he would unlock the Godly King's seals. The more seals he unlocked, the stronger his body would become. With his current strength, he didn't need soul power to unleash great strength. Unless he reached an extremely high rank. Long Xie's cultivation increased rapidly as he fought more and more battles. In less than 10 days, Long Xie's cultivation reached 100 years, even though he didn't encounter many evil soul beasts. Chapter 1061. Wang Feng's first soul ring had also become a yellow soul ring. If Cuckoo and Juzi were here, they would be even more astonished by this cultivation method. After 100 years, the rock beast's size didn't increase. However, its skin turned from an earthy yellow to a golden brown. Its aura was becoming stronger. Its strength was increasing rapidly. It couldn't be helped. Once Wang Feng started cultivating, he would improve too quickly with the help of the energy of heaven and earth in the great star Do forest. Over these few days, Wang Feng had also perfected his life soul contract. Wang Feng thought about Long Xie's resting space. Usually, Long Xie would stay by his side to absorb the energy of heaven and earth. However, it needed to rest. Wang Feng placed his resting space inside his soul ring. After a 100-year soul ring was formed, once a soul contract was signed with a soul beast, not only would the soul ring contain powerful soul power, it would also give birth to a special interstitial space that could absorb the soul beast into one's own soul ring for recovery. This was the law of space. Apart from the complete law of life, the origin of life also contained the God King's understanding of other laws, such as space and time. However, these laws weren't complete. They were only his understanding. Apart from the law of life, Wang Feng also understood a small portion of the law of space and time. He used them in his life soul contract. As long as his soul ring reached 100 years, it would automatically give birth to such an interspatial space. However, it was only limited to the soul beast that could be contained. If it recovered or rested enough, it could come out of the soul ring and breathe in the fresh air of this world. Of course, it could also stay by its master's side. Wang Feng called the interspatial space in his soul ring the spirit domain space. It was bound to his life soul contract. Only by signing a soul contract with a soul beast and obtaining a soul ring could such a spirit domain space be born. Wang Feng was a little happy that his life soul contract was being perfected. It's time to leave this place and take a look outside. Wang Feng looked at the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. According to the records on the map, this mountain was no longer called the Rainbow Mountain. It was now called the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. At this moment, a soul beast suddenly appeared in the distance. This soul beast was none other than the golden lion-like soul beast that Cuckoo and Juzi had encountered earlier. Wang Feng knew that it was called the Three-Eyed Golden Lion. He had to admit that this soul beast was very beautiful. It exuded a noble aura. The Three-Eyed Golden Lion was followed by a group of powerful 100,000-year soul beasts. It looked at Wang Feng with vigilance. Wang Feng also looked at it. There were countless powerful soul beasts around the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. No one knew how many soul beasts had benefited from this, but the soul beasts now regarded the Star Battle Sacred Mountain as a holy land, a divine mountain. However, not many soul beasts knew that there were people in this mountain. It was impossible for these soul beasts to sense Wang Feng, who was inside, using godly monarch laws. Only the extremely intelligent 100,000-year soul beasts could roughly guess that there might be other living beings in the divine mountain through the humans who occasionally returned to this place over the years. However, the soul beasts didn't know who it was. Wang Feng walked out of the divine mountain and the holy land of these soul beasts, causing them to be very vigilant. When Wang Feng left with Cuckoo and Juzi that day, these soul beasts' killing intent had weakened. They didn't follow them because they were afraid. Wang Feng wasn't afraid of being surrounded by these 100,000-year soul beasts. Even Long Xie lazily patted his belly and exhaled. He looked at these 100,000-year soul beasts with a domineering aura. Those who didn't know better would think that this was a million-year paragon, but it was actually a 100-year crag dragon. The three-eyed golden lion. Long Xie exhaled. When I was still around, she didn't even have 10,000 years of cultivation. She is the only ancient auspicious beast in the great Star Do forest. The soul beasts around her cultivate at a much faster speed. They also possess two ultimate elements. 10,000 years is comparable to 100,000 years. Over the past 10,000 years, her cultivation has increased by 90,000 years. Boss, they have benefited from you. Long Xie extended his white claws and threw the stones on the ground at them. He shouted, "You brats, don't you recognize your master Long? Where's Di Tian? He pretended to be asleep for 10,000 years. He should have at least 900,000 years of cultivation, right? Tell him to come out and greet his uncle." Wang Feng was speechless. The rock melted before it even touched the three-eyed golden lion. "Why are you howling?" Wang Feng knocked Long Xie's head and snapped, "Can't you tell that she's here to send me off?" Long Xie was stunned. He looked at the three-eyed golden lion. "Come over." Wang Feng waved at the three-eyed golden lion. The three-eyed golden lion hesitated for a moment, but it still walked towards Wang Feng. The wariness in its eyes gradually disappeared. It was very intelligent, and it was very wary of Huoyuhao. Why would he appear in their holy land? However, Huoyuhao's aura didn't make these soul beasts feel any hostility towards him. In fact, they felt very close to him. These soul beasts didn't know that the energy they absorbed was from Wang Feng's residual life energy. Furthermore, the residual life energy around the great star Do mountain was very dense. Wang Feng's body was formed from pure life energy. Even without the life origin, this life force was still able to make these soul beasts feel close to it. Even the 100,000-year soul beasts were no exception. The three-eyed golden lion walked in front of Wang Feng. It opened its eyes wide and blinked. It looked very cute. Wang Feng patted its head and said, "You soul beasts have protected this mountain for 10,000 years. Although you might not know who I am, don't worry. As long as you stay here, no one will be able to hurt you." His main body was here. Although he couldn't break the seal on the five-colored godly mountain, he could still release his spiritual power. Even if a million-year soul beast or even a god-tier powerhouse were to appear, Wang Feng's immense spiritual power would be able to easily kill them. However, he could only do so within the great star Do mountain. Why didn't those powerful evil soul beasts dare to barge in? Although Wang Feng didn't know what happened during the Fifth War of the Soul Beasts, many powerful evil soul beasts did barge in. It was because of that Wang Feng was awakened. A single primal chaos 8 notes tremor had directly shattered the evil soul beast that had barged in. However, Wang Feng went into deep meditation after destroying those evil soul beasts. He didn't care too much, so he didn't know much about these evil soul beasts. After that, the evil soul beasts rarely entered the godly mountain. Naturally, he knew even less about them. When the three-eyed golden lion heard Wang Feng's words, it blinked again. It seemed very familiar. Suddenly, it opened its mouth and stuck out its tongue. It licked Wang Feng's palm. P.S. There's a few more tonight. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.